All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a good holiday weekend here. Those of you who celebrate, and thanks so much for stopping by. It's like all the other usual live streams, going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering. Then anyone does a super chat or a super thanks. I suppose anyone who's a member there with the green usernames, they always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description to that. And So yeah, I was taking a walk today, breathing in a bunch of cold air, so my voice is still continuing to be a little bit iffy here, but hopefully we'll be good for the full 2 hours here. But I see we have Lanswath, Tony, Mr. 705, confirmation, B. Mitchell, Raphael, confirmation, and let me see, and Felix, Luke, and yeah, so thanks so much, everyone. And I see Lanswath starts us off here by saying Happy Easter. My spots this week were a blue Mitsubishi 3000 GT and a black E92 M3. Very nice. And Tony says Happy Easter as well. And he doesn't have any crazy spots except for a few electric Hummers, most likely traveling together. Interesting. Yeah, I saw a couple of cool cars because there was a Cars and Coffee yesterday, and I didn't go to it, but I was driving by on the highway and I saw I think it was a Z06, new C8 Z06, and then saw a Cayman S, I think it was. It was pretty nice looking and yellow. What else did I see? I saw a few others, I think. Nothing crazy, but that was cool. And B. Mitchell says, it's a slow week when your spot is an early 90s Dodge Cummins diesel pickup. I heard it before I saw it. I bet you did. That's funny. But yeah, I mean, the early 90s ones, they're pretty rare, so probably a pretty good spot still. Let me see. Confirmation says, question, when is the last time you've seen a BMW F31, aka the 6th gen 2012 to 2019 3 Series Touring? They are rare. I did come across a few when I used to work at the BMW dealer back in the day, but yeah, personally, I think it's probably been, I don't even know, probably at least several years. Because they're, yeah, pretty rare. But I'm curious if you guys see them a little more frequently by you or not. But that's, yeah, it's a good question. Thanks for giving me the model years there, because otherwise, if you would have said F31, I would have no clue because I'm terrible with all the BMW names, outside the code names outside of the usual ones. But Felix says the Matt Moran fan club is present, waiting for our star. Well, thanks for stopping by. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late here. And Luke says mystery roof leak over the flat roof over top of my kitchen that has been fun to attempt to hunt down. Yeah, that's a pain. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that it's still continuing to give you problems, and hopefully it gets sorted out soon. We don't have a leak, but we have a few shingles we're going to get replaced here. And so it's hard to get people to come out. Like roofing people don't want to come out unless you want a whole new roof. Otherwise, like they're like, nope, like zero interest. So you got to call a handyman for roof repairs, at least around here. And that's, we'll see how that goes. I'm going to be getting 2 estimates and hopefully we can get some stuff figured out there for that too. Lancelot says, brought to you from the basement in a little town in PA. It's Matt Moran. Pretty much, yeah. Brian says, I saw an old school Cadillac convertible this week. Very nice. And Luke says he'd love to have a beer with us. Likewise, it'd be great to all get together in person someday. It'd be really fun. Fishy Tankland, thanks for stopping by. He says, yo, how's the Fiat? Spring for a 230i or save another 2 years for an M240i? I mean, I think between the two of those, obviously the M240i is more fun. It comes down to what your priorities are as far as, you know, how important is speed to you. I think the 230i is great. It still is, you know, a really nice little car. I think it's kind of underrated in a lot of ways because it's a little bit lighter and, you know, it allows you to kind of have that driving a slow car fast kind of thing, more so than, you know, they're like, wow, like the 240i is so fast and it's fun. And by the way, I'm not sure which generation you're talking about, but I did do the 230i of the current generation with xDrive, and I did the M240i for the last generation a while back. So I've sampled both kind of. I'd like to do a new M240i at some point, but just haven't gotten to it yet. Yeah, so that's going to really come down to, and also though, I'm a firm believer in, you know, not instant gratification, but, you know, don't delay gratification because, you know, nothing's guaranteed. If you're not in a fun car now and you are if the decision is either wait to have fun for 2 years or start having some fun now in the 230i, have the fun now. You can always upgrade down the road. In 230i, depending on which generation you're talking about, I mean, if it's one of the older ones, they might not depreciate that much further, especially if you're not racking up a ton of miles. But even if it does depreciate, again, it's worth it for the fun. Cars are not great investments typically. It's about the fun. And so if you can comfortably afford the 230i, give it a try, and you might not end up needing more power. You might find that you really love it and you don't need to go, all the way to the 240i anyway. But if you, drive the 230i, you're like, okay, then that's the goal. That motivates you for the next 2 years to get into the M240i. And try and trade in. Obviously, probably would save a little bit of money by just, skipping the lower one and just waiting for the upper one. But then you miss out on the 2 years of fun or some fun in the meantime. So I would go 230i now, can always upgrade down the road. And you also, your interests might change. You might say, okay, I've scratched the 2 Series itch. Yeah, more power would be nice, but now maybe I'm excited about something else, and so I would, yeah, scratch the itch now while you can with the 230i, and then go from there would be my advice. And as far as the Fiat's doing great. Since I haven't had press cars for a few weeks now, I've been using it like a regular daily driver, acting like a normal person finally. And it's been fun. It's up to about 1,650 odd miles or so now. So still not much, but I've put a couple hundred miles on it here in the past few weeks. Yeah, looking forward to doing some more driving because I won't have press cars again until the end of this month. So gonna be doing some more driving and really loving it though. It's doing really well. It's treating me well. I'm gonna be taking it in for a state inspection here this week, and they'll be also clearing. There's like a regular maintenance reminder that pops up every 2 years, and the car is 2 years old, even though I've only had it for a year because it was sitting for a year. So that they're going to reset that, and hopefully that won't cost me anything, but otherwise it's doing pretty well. The brakes sometimes don't like sitting for long periods of time, so they sometimes make a little bit of just noise like you have when you have any kind of build up on them every so often, and they just don't get used a ton because you have the regen going all the time as well. But yeah, the Fiat's doing super well. It has less quality issues than our Cadillac, at least the Lyriq. So yeah, it's, I guess, either really bad for the Cadillac or really good for the Fiat. But I mean, the Fiat's been flawless, honestly. Like total, I mean, again, not like I've driven it very much, so it's a very easy thing to be flawless for the first under 2,000 miles in any car. But it's doing really well. I love that little thing. Let me see. Luke says, I saw a Chrysler Sebring convertible blowing out white stinky smoke. Oh man. Yeah, that's not great. And also, Lancelot, sorry I missed it till now. Thank you so much for the very generous super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, did anyone catch the Artemis 2 launch this week? Yes, I did. I watched it. I'm curious if any of you guys saw it, but yeah, that was so cool to watch. And it was also, I was able to watch it, with my kid, and having her, see an actual real astronaut launch for the first time was really special. And kind of like, old-fashioned kind of sentimental thing, like what I'm imagining it was like for those who watched, in the late 60s. But it was really impressive in my opinion. I've always loved space. It's been so, a huge passion of mine for, a long time, especially as a kid. But yeah, that's really cool. I mean, there's things about it, we could, debate and stuff, but I think space exploration is super cool. So, and also kind of important too. So I'm excited about that, and I hope you guys enjoyed that too. And thank you again for the super chat there. And also confirmation says, have you ever driven on Rialto Road? Is it as steep as it looks? Yes, I have. It is really steep. I mean, maybe when you're in a car, it's a little less crazy. I remember the first time I went up it, I was like actually concerned, like, will I have enough traction? Because you've, so much weight transfer to the rear that in a front wheel drive car, it's like, is this actually like safe to go up? But amazingly it is. I mean, you also, get a little bit of momentum whenever you start going up it. But yeah, it's honestly, admittedly, it's probably been at least 10 years since I've been up it, but it's one of those things where like, oh, this is gonna be sketchy, and there's like, oh, that's actually not so bad. So I guess to answer your question, it's probably not as crazy as it looks in pictures. Um, but it is still crazy. And even when you're there, it looks crazy. But then like once you actually do it, it doesn't seem that big of a deal. But yeah, I should do like a little, maybe that'd be a fun like POV video instead of doing my usual loop. If I have a little bit of extra time to burn, maybe in the next notable vehicle to do a POV drive in, maybe do Rialto, which is one of the steepest. I think it's one of the steepest hills in the country. I think some have argued it is the steepest. I'm not sure if that's actually legit, but it's up there. So maybe I don't let me think. I don't have anything super crazy that I'd probably do POV videos on for the coming press cars here next month. But yeah, at some point that could be a fun idea though. And I have that on a running list. I have like a list of like cool little Pittsburgh spots to be kind of fun to like vlog about and like, do like car related things as far as like roads or, little fun historical tie-ins that are, automotive adjacent, but just never have been able to execute on that, but that could be a fun thing to blend in at some point here. And Luke says, luckily my guy is on the case and hoping to get the problem solved. The part of the kitchen is near the basement door, so luckily not on the counters or anything. Okay, well that's good. Hopefully everything staying good still on your recent renovation there. And Mr. 705 says, have you had more time to relax or watch some shows lately, or has it still been late nights, foot to the floor? Yeah, unfortunately still been late nights. So there's every once in a while there's like a Saturday night where I'm like, okay, I'm ahead of work enough that we can stop and catch up on a couple of shows or something. So I've watched most of the recent SNLs because that's always one of our top shows to watch, but other than that, haven't had any time to watch anything else, unfortunately. So yeah, we want to get back into the Mission Impossible movies because we started going through those a while back, and anytime we have like 2 hours, which is pretty rare, but 2 hours to like sit down and watch something, Beth's like been really into wanting to go through the rest of those because she actually really enjoys them, which is kind of surprising because she's not super into Bond or anything like that, but she really enjoys the Mission Impossible. So that's the other thing we're trying to get through. Right now we're on, I think the next one we're watching is Rogue Nation. For anyone who knows Mission Impossible, we just watched the one with the Burj Khalifa. And yeah, I think, or maybe that one was called Rogue Nation. I can't keep them straight. But anyway, they're fun. They're fun to watch. A little less serious than, the Craig Bonds, especially. So yeah, she's been enjoying those, and it's been fun because I've never seen them before, so going through those is cool. But hoping to balance things out someday, but it doesn't look like there's any signs of that improving anytime soon here, unfortunately, because the rants just haven't been doing super well recently. The reviews, my little experiments there haven't seemed to pay off just yet. I mean, they're long-term plays with some of those videos, but we'll see. The channel hasn't been doing super well in the past couple of weeks here, so hopefully things turn around. But yeah, it's still a struggle. And now it's also seasonal right now. Like, people were cooped up all winter, so there was actually kind of decent viewership over the winter time. And now it's getting warm. Everyone doesn't want to sit in front of a TV or a computer. They want to get out and enjoy the good weather, and I don't blame them. Go out and enjoy your life. Don't sit in front of a screen all the time. But like, it hurts views. At least for me. So I've always noticed, April is kind of tough. May is kind of tough. You get a little bit of traffic comes back in once like people are on vacation or people, are done with school. They have a little more free time, stuff like that. But it all ebbs and flows. But unfortunately, not able to slow down with the workload. But Lancewell says, doesn't Speed Academy still have an F31 3 Series touring? I don't know anything about what they do, but maybe that'd be cool. Luke says, I wish they made an Accord-sized Sportback with a 3-liter V6, 270 horsepower, 6-speed manual, 32 mpg highway. One can dream. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the manual, I'd tell you Volkswagen Arteon or Kia Stinger would be the way, I would recommend you going. But, without those, I guess with the Stinger, it's turbo. But the Arteon, I believe the early Arteons did offer the regular V6, if I remember correctly. But just yeah, no manual. You could probably swap a manual in. Probably wouldn't be super hard, but probably not super easy either. And Kevin, thanks for saying happy Easter as well. Hope you had a good one. And Fuke says, "Hey Matt, sorry I missed a few live streams, but I love the new camera setup and lighting. Looks super high production quality. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it, and yeah, I'm trying here a little bit to improve it. So I'm glad that it's being noticed, and hopefully we'll see if it helps. These live streams have never really grown, but maybe that'll help someday. We'll see what happens. But let me see. V Mitchell says, waiting to see if the Fiat gets failed for emissions. Fair question. Yeah." Yeah, we'll see. I think it was one of the years with the Mach-E where someone like at first was like, "Oh, wait a minute, like, do I need to do two stickers?" I'm like, "No, it's just one, it's just one." And I remember when we first got the Mach-E back, 4 years ago now, when we first picked it up, I don't know, I think I might have told this story. When we first picked it up, you have like 30 days to get it inspected after you get the registration. We're still waiting for the registration to come through because we bought it out of state, and that always takes long. And every dealer, it's like they've never done an out of state deal in their life, and they just have no clue how to do it. It's just I hate out of state deals. That's what I always have to do to get good deals. But man, dealers are so just completely lost when it comes to dealing with other states. But anyway, so we were waiting, and so I didn't have an inspection sticker on it, and we actually got pulled over, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I saw you didn't have an inspection." I'm like, "Yeah, we're waiting for the registration." They said we had 30 days, and so all the paperwork is in order, and we were in the clear. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's fine." He's like, "But also just like stopping people that don't have it on their EVs, because a lot of EV owners don't realize they need to still get it inspected in PA for like the visual inspection." I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, I know." I don't know if that's actually a thing or not. I guess that's what he's experienced, is a bunch of people that didn't think they needed state inspections here in PA. But it's like, yeah, no matter what, you got to get at least the one sticker. We have two stickers if you're gas. But yeah. But yeah, hopefully the Fiat will pass. I mean, who knows? Maybe the brakes will say something about it, or there'll be some other hidden thing that's uncovered. But hopefully nothing has gone wrong in under 2,000 miles. But I wouldn't put it past it. And hey, it makes for great content. Any of those issue videos always get tons of views, so I wouldn't be super mad about it. But that little Fiat, I'm glad it's been treating me well so far. I will say though, as much as I'm really enjoying it, I'm still really feeling the itch for a GR Corolla. I'm like, man, we'll see. I mean, the Fiat I'm stuck in that lease until 2028. I don't have the money anyway, but if things improve in 2028, I'm gonna try, and maybe I'll even just do an experiment. I bought the highest mileage GR Corolla in the country for whatever it is, 20 grand or something at that point, and make a content series out of it or something. But every time I think back to the GR Corolla, I'm like, that's really what I want. Like, just I got that itch. I gotta scratch it. I'll see if I get if I'm fortunate enough to achieve that down the road. But let me see. Quagmire says, what would be your non-Tesla EV? The Rivian R2 has my attention to replace our Model 3 in 2 years' time. I know you have the Lyriq, but GM software issues scare me away despite the Caddy EV being nice. If it wasn't a Lyriq, I guess if you're already in a Tesla, you don't miss not having CarPlay. So Rivian might be a very nice transition for you. Like I know, for example, one of our neighbors just picked up an Equinox EV, and I told him, I'm like, you don't have CarPlay. He's like, I'm coming out of a 2011 Ford Escape. I never had CarPlay anyway. I don't know what I'm missing, and so like they were totally fine to go for the Equinox, and they're none the wiser as far as, in my opinion, the joys of CarPlay or Android Auto. But so they don't miss it. So like for them, it actually works out really well. And I'm like, this is a great car. If you don't miss that or you don't care about that, go for that. The thing about the Rivian, we'll see what happens, but like with the R1T that I had about a year ago, that thing, it didn't recognize the key. There's a steep learning curve. And I mean, I guess you're used to learning curves again from the Tesla because they did things a little bit different. So it might not be as bad for you, but I mean, even someone like myself that's in and out of, different car every week, I think I have a pretty good tolerance for learning curves and figuring stuff out because I've done it so much. But the Rivian was really like that car. Like actually like kind of gave me like a tension headache on certain days because I was like stressed, like, okay, I gotta remember how to like do this thing. I gotta remember like what screen to be on to do this or that. And like, why do I have to like pull my phone out to unlock the car? Because the app was the only thing that worked for me. Um, it was just the software. I mean, if you're saying software scares you away in the Cadillac, to me, the Rivian software scares the crap out of me. And it's bizarre. I'm probably in the minority there because like the Rivian software is so great that even like Volkswagen's gonna be licensing it here in their future stuff and using it for the Scout and everything else. But like, I don't know. I despise the Rivian software. I don't like the way that the infotainment's arranged. I don't like it's so limiting. Like even the icons at the bottom, they only let you like put in like certain things, only a certain amount. The Cadillac, like there's a menu bar at the bottom. You can throw whatever you want in there. Like you could, the most random like little menus or whatever, you can chuck them down in that bottom thing if you use it all the time. And I mean, knock on wood, the Cadillac, I mean, the Cadillac has lots of flaws, but software is not one of them. The software is flawless. It has a regular key fob, which like is huge for me because they always work 100% of the time. I can get into my Cadillac without an issue. No, not a single time. Now, sometimes it won't present the door handles whenever I walk up to it, but it's a physical handle. I just push in on the little other side of it and I pull it open myself. But like the fob has never failed me, not a single time. And the Rivians, it's failed. The Polestars, it's failed. So I like the engineering of Rivian. I think they have promise, but you couldn't pay me to daily drive a Rivian right now because they are just like it just was a headache. And maybe I had a terrible press car. Maybe if I had like my ownership stuff all set up and I had, all the proper keys, because they gave us a weird like key card. But some people said that Rivians do come with fobs, or some said they don't. I don't know, but like it was a horrible experience. Hands down, the Rivian was like probably the most, that and the Polestar were the most aggravating cars I had last year as far as press cars goes. And like, yeah. And I mean, I like the Rivian team. Like I know the person who does the PR for Rivian. They're very nice. And it's, I want to like it. I want to like the car, but it just drove me crazy personally. Again, everyone's mileage will vary on that. So that's going to be different for everyone. If it's not a GM vehicle and it's not a Rivian, I think, again, I come from the gas side of things. And so I like the comfort of legacy automakers, legacy dealer support, again, key fobs, regular familiar stuff, normal tuning for things, not trying to reinvent the wheel or be weird with having no buttons and things like that. So, like for us, some of the stuff I've been really impressed with is actually the Toyota EVs, which I know they don't charge as fast and stuff, so it might not be a great solution for everyone. But like the BZ actually is having a really good year so far, and I think part of it is the fact that it's just been so greatly improved, and they've also made the pricing really good. So it's now like as cheap or cheaper than a RAV4 in many cases. And the fact that no one can get their hands on a RAV4 right now because they're so supply limited with the new one. And it's like the same price. And now you got $4 gas. Like BZ is taking off. But I also think some people are just like, this is an electric RAV4. And if you're ready for EVs, it's like, okay, well, this is on the lot. I don't have to go through any of the BS to get a RAV4. This is sitting here. It's probably heavily discounted. They're on their hands and knees begging me to take it off their lot. And that's unusual for a Toyota product. Like, that's probably helping out a lot too. But like, it's also just, it's a perfect electric RAV4. It's really well done. I mean, I had a few complaints if you watch my video on it, like I don't like the way they do the gauge cluster, but I think they're going to be fixing that because like the new Highlander has like a proper gauge cluster instead. It's kind of the same one you see in the RAV4. So they ditched that whole stupid like half head-up display, half not head-up display thing. But like, Toyota builds their batteries last a long time. That's why they don't charge super fast. But like, they built it to be like, this is supposed to last as long as our gas cars. And plenty of space. All that stuff is great. I really love those. The only other thing, I would recommend an Ioniq 5 because I really like the packaging, the styling, the way Hyundai does their software, the way everything. It's really, really well done. But that car and all the EGMP, Hyundai, and Kia EVs, and even the Genesis for that matter, they all have the same Achilles heel of the ICCU that Hyundai has not fixed still. That's the junction box, essentially, the alternator, so to speak, of the EV just straight up fails. And it's somewhere between a 2 and 10% failure rate. It's hard to nail down, but that's kind of where, a lot of people are having these things. And when it just goes randomly without warning, and it leaves you stranded if you're moving. Not great. And so that's really the giant Achilles heel of those. Otherwise, I'd be recommending those left and right because they're fantastic otherwise. But for me personally, that's not one we would ever consider for that reason. So yeah, but there's a lot of other great choices. I think the majority of the choices out there are really good, but I do really think GM is doing some of the best. Like, again, I don't know what you've heard as far as the software goes and what turns you off about GM software, but like they've done a really good job with that. And as long as you get good build quality, which some people say even with the Lyrics, they have great build quality for theirs. We just, again, got a Friday car, I think, or a Monday car, whatever it is, but I actually think GM's doing some of the best EVs, honestly. Mach-E is also great. We had a great time in ours. Just the rear rotors can sometimes, gets a little bit screwed up if you don't drive it enough, or they get gunked up. But other than that, Mach-E was fantastic. I recommend one, and we might actually go back to a Mach-E if we end up finding ourselves in the used EV market, maybe for the next go around, if we're trying to save some more money. Picking up a Mach-E for 25 grand, it's a lot of car for the money. So that would be another one that is just a really well done car. So hopefully it helps you a little bit. Sorry for the long answer, but yeah, that's my download there on all that stuff. And again, there's lots of others. I could go through every single brand, but a lot of them have done a really good job of catching up to Tesla in some ways. Again, Tesla does some things better still for sure, but yeah, I think there's also some downsides to the Tesla too, including, what's the support going to be like if Elon's kind of losing his interest in cars and going to all these other things. We'll have to see. But anyway, B. Mitchell says your daughter is the same age I was when we landed on the moon in '69. Yeah, I'm getting old. Well, that's awesome though. That it's kind of one of those things that comes full circle, and it's very exciting to see them attempting that, and hope it all goes well for them. But Confirmation says, as a journalist, when manufacturers take you out on trips to nice places to sample their upcoming cars, do you think that is a concern that journalists may not be as objective towards the car in review? No, most of the time, no. And I know this is an idea that was popularized by Doug DeMuro, and he's very influential. So a lot of people absolutely believe that. I don't know if you're just trying to wind me up or if, or if you're actually being serious. I promise I won't go into a 20-minute DeMuro rant here, but the short answer is if you're a new journalist maybe and like you've never been anywhere on a trip before, yes, it has the potential to sway you. But for someone or any of us that have done this for any length of time, it's a job. Yes, you're at a nice hotel, you're eating a nice meal, maybe you're in a nice place. But I'm trying to put it in terms that like people who don't do this can like kind of relate to. It's like anything else. If maybe there's other things in your guys' lives where like you get to do something really cool that most people don't always get to do. And whether that's like, Luke drives 18 wheelers, like that's a really cool thing. There's probably a lot of people that like think that's a really cool job. And, but then Luke would say, oh yeah, but there's all these downsides, I'm sure, things that he doesn't like, nothing's perfect. And it's one of those things where, you guys see the highlight reels, you see us, on some winding road in Napa Valley or, whatever, take your pick, but you don't see, the delays, getting stranded in airports, waking up at 5 a.m. to make your flight, waking up at 5 a.m. to make your flight home. Just all the unglamorous stuff, like any social media stuff. We always see the highlight reels of everyone's lives. We always see our friends and families and neighbors, vacation pictures, but you don't see the pictures of them doing their daily life stuff, all the boring, mundane stuff. You see their little highlight reel and wow, they got a great life. The grass is greener on the other side. It's one of those types of things, but no, like it doesn't sway me at all. And I think like, for the manufacturer's side, like they do curate the trips because they want us to have a good time. Obviously, they don't want us to be miserable. So, like, yes, they pick a place. They want to make sure that the car is well suited to the place that we're at. So, if we're in a sporty car, they want to, make sure we're on roads that properly show off what the car can do. So they make an environment that is, favorable to the vehicle for sure. And this is why I like doing follow-up videos. Even if I've already done a review, I do a my week with on my own roads, doing the usual boring, daily driving stuff. Like, okay, in this non-glamorous environment, how does this hold up now? What do I think about it now in, regular life kind of stuff, without the steak in my belly and without, the sleep in a 4-star hotel or whatever the case is, but like, no, it's if you ask anyone who does this, even the people that like, maybe do, not do this very often, like, you're there to review the car. We're there for the content. And I mean, you can ask any of these guys, like, we would rather, I mean, a lot of them, like, every time GM does something, or like Ford or any of those, especially American companies, do something in Detroit, we're like, thank you. This is so easy. Everyone can like get there in one flight. And for a lot of us, it's a super short flight, especially, as long as you're not on the West Coast. Like, a lot of us, like, car confections there in, Kentucky, me and Sophie on here in PA. Like, for all of us, it's like, sweet. It's a 45-minute flight. Thank you for doing this. Like, I don't need to be in Malibu. Like, give me the car for, 3 hours in the suburbs of Detroit. I'm happy. Like, and we don't care. And a lot of times, a lot of these, when we go on some of these trips, like, a lot of them, especially some of the guys that are busier with this stuff, like, they pack multiple trips into a week. And so, like, they skip half the dinners because they got to go to the next trip. And as soon as they're done filming the car, they're in a car, they're going straight to the airport, they're hopping on another plane. They don't even get wined and dined for half the time. And, and there's a lot of that stuff that doesn't matter. I mean, I think, the people are really the other big cool thing about the press trips is, like, at this Dodge event for the Charger RT, like, I got to sit next to the CEO of Dodge at dinner and have a conversation with the CEO of Dodge. Like, to me, that actually is more of a privilege that could potentially get me more excited about a car than, food or hotel or where I'm at or whatever. Like, getting that access, like, I mean, how many Dodge fans or Dodge haters would love to have a dinner with the CEO of Dodge and be able to, like, talk his ear off and listen to him talk and share, his thoughts on stuff and his perspective on, the industry and all these other kinds of things. Like, that is super cool. But even that, like, okay, like, he thinks this Charger is the greatest thing ever. And then I tell you what I think still. And even still, I don't care. Like, I take what he says into account. I take what, the presentation says and all that other stuff. But, like, especially if you've done this long enough, you don't get swayed. You know how to make opinions about cars and develop that yourself. And we're all very tuned in on, being opinionated about stuff and caring about this, what this has done or why this is the way it is. But getting that inside scoop does help me to make a better video sometimes. And that's what I do like about those things, because it's like, asking, okay, well, why did you guys get rid of the electric Charger RT? And he's like, well, we have nothing against it. It's just the market was saying they didn't want it. And he's like, it's in the wings. Like, we can bring it back tomorrow if people say they want it back. Like, and so that gives me clarity. Like, oh, they don't hate EVs. It's just like, they're tweaking and they're flexing with demand. But, like, that is something that they are fully prepared to bring back at the drop of a hat if they want to. Or, something else like another interesting little tidbit that, again, I wouldn't have gotten. I mean, I could have potentially gotten this answer if I would have gone through an email chain for multiple days or whatever. But, like, one of the other things I didn't actually talk about in my Charger video, but I had a question about, was, like, in the Charger RT, the back seat doesn't have a manual door release. And you guys know how I'm weird about car safety. That's been a hot topic in the news, though. All these Teslas are trapping people in the rear, and they lose power in accidents, and then people can't get out, and it, can be fatal in some cases and tragic. So I was crawling around the back of the Charger RT back seat, when I was filming my review, a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh, there's because there's manual releases in the front, but there's none for the back. I'm like, ooh, this could be bad. So again, being on a trip and being on this thing, I had the good fortune of being able to sit there and have lunch the interior designer for Stellantis and particularly Stellantis North American products. And so I got to ask him, instead of, wondering or maybe trying to pester people for answers, I got to ask the guy who designed the door panel, why do you not have a manual door release? He's like, oh, because there's supercapacitors in the buttons in the door latches. He's like, even if all power gets cut to that car, that door latch will still open like 5 times or something like that before it runs out of power. So it's like we've yeah, even in a worst case scenario, like we've engineered for that, and it will be fine. It's totally safe, and like that's the kind of really cool stuff. Like to get the behind the scenes on all these nitty gritty details that helps inform me, because otherwise I was actually going to go off my video like, this doesn't have a rear seat release, like this is crazy, like, but instead I was able to cut that whole portion out, because I'm like, this isn't actually something to worry about, because they've properly thought this through, and they've thought about the safety of this, which I also was able to thank them in person, say thank you for doing something that Tesla, for example, hasn't done very well, and others, and I have to say, yeah, thanks for being thorough about that, because especially someone like myself, I got kids in the back seat. This is very important stuff, and so those types of things, even that doesn't sway me, but those are the real nice perks of these trips and why I do love them. But no, there's no sway. And it just, that argument makes sense. I mean, that was a very persuasive thing that Doug said a while back and continues to repeat, it seems, every so often, because it makes sense if you're on the outside. You think, wow, like if I was on this trip, I'd be on cloud 9 and it'd be super cool. And I'd be, not able to sleep for a week or whatever, if it's a car you're really excited about. So for some people, maybe that does make sense. Like, oh yeah, I'd totally say super good things about anything, but it's like, no, like, I don't care. And especially like, the thing that I've always loved about how I started this channel was with dealers. And I can piss off every single car company if I want. I still am going to have an endless supply of cars to review for the end of time. And even if it wasn't the dealer stuff, I have so many of you that have offered cars that if I want to hit the road and do a bunch of road trips, I probably would never run out of cars that way too, because I'm very grateful. I'm in a very fortunate position. So many of you have been so generously offering your cars as well over the past 12 years here. So that gives me an extra level of comfort. There might be some others where like, yeah, like this is their access and they live and die by these trips. Maybe that's something. I mean, I've talked to other reviewers. Again, it's not a lot, but some of the other reviewers are just like, I just won't film a review if I get a press car in and it's terrible. And they say the manufacturers are fine with that. If all you're going to say is negative stuff, they would rather you just, send the car back, let it be a waste of money for them to send it to you. But like, they'd rather take that hit than, the bad PR. I mean, so there are some where if they're really trying to preserve those relationships, they never lie or anything, but they just will straight up just not talk about the car or something like that. But like, for most of us, like, we say stuff, and some people do it differently. Like there's the crap sandwich to make it family friendly, but that's a term that's thrown around, and Matt Farah and others have talked about this in some of their podcasts and stuff, where you sugarcoat in a way by saying, oh, like I really love this thing on this car, but there's this thing that really sucks, but there's also this other really great thing, and you sandwich the criticism into positives to try and smooth it over. They seem to think like that actually works for some people. I don't know if it actually does. I cut through BS. So for me, I'm like, oh, okay. And I hyperfixate on the crap that's in the middle of the sandwich there. So I've never tried to do that or anything. Because I don't feel any pressure. And honestly, also like, I've experienced, with lots of car companies, I have given them hell in some of these car reviews that I've done. I mean, like the Rivian one, for example, or many of these others, where I give them so much crap. Like this is not good, and they're cool with it. And I think that's another misnomer, is people think you can't say things that are negative. And I think that the important differentiation there is, in my experience at least, car companies are fine with criticism if it is well supported and if it is fair. If it's fair criticism, no complaints, no issues. There was one stupid time, this was like 10 years ago now, where Lincoln was mad at me because I said that the MKX back in the day was based on the Ford Edge. But I was like, it's actually nicer. And I'm like, I even said in the video, I would pay more for the MKX over the Edge, even though it is based on the Edge, because the Lincoln is that much nicer. It's worth the extra money. So and that wasn't even me trying to do a crap sandwich. I genuinely believed that. But I got an email from Lincoln being like, oh, it really has nothing to do with the Edge. But I'm like, come on, man. And Ford, they're a little iffy sometimes. They've gotten better in the past, but back then, like, it was like, dude, like, who are you trying to fool? Like, everyone knows this is based on the Edge. Like, it was a really stupid thing to like try and give me crap over. That's the only time I've ever had a car companies do anything like that. I mean, like for example, 370Z or Nissan Z Nismo. I was like, this car does not feel good to me. Like, others praised it. I don't know if I got one on bad tires or what, but I checked the tires. I checked the tread. I checked the pressure. I checked every possible thing under the car. I crawled around to make sure there was nothing wrong with it that I could see. Everything seemed fine, but that Z Nismo just would not hook up. It would not grip around corners. It was just super sketchy. And I said that plainly in my video. And Nissan has never said anything to me about it. They've invited me on all these trips. They continue to send me press cars and zero, complaints, even though I'm like, this is disappointing. And I don't sugarcoat. And yet, and so I think that also, speaks volumes of the car companies. If there is a company where if someone feels pressure to like be positive, that's not a good car company, because if they can't take criticism, then they can't improve. And, then that also means that they're just not very, the integrity is in question. If you are only looking for positivity and you're not interested in any real reviews, then that's probably a company you shouldn't trust, because they're hiding something. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so defensive about you pointing out the flaws. And so, yeah. Again, sorry for the long answer. Probably wasn't quite 20 minutes. At least it wasn't all about Doug. But yeah, I never feel any pressure, and it's not something I ever worry about. Maybe that's not everyone, but for me, that's one thing you guys can always take to the bank for sure. Let me see here. Where were we here? Lego says, do you think a Golf R is a good car for a family of 4? Depends on how large your family of 4 is. It's not bad. And actually, I just did a car consultation with someone here in the past couple of months who was trying to figure out, they have kids and trying to figure out if they had, I think, a kid, trying to figure out if a Golf R was going to be big enough for them. And they were, a little iffy. I'm like, it's not huge, but depending on how, tall you and your significant other are, it might work. And actually, I have was a neighbor friend of ours who also actually does have a Mark 7.5 Golf R, and he's got 2 kid seats, car seats in the back of it, drives his 2 kids around in it, no problems. And it works because he's not like super tall or anything. So I think it does work. And the thing that, I've talked to him about, and also this, this other viewer who, I did the consultation with, it's a car that both of them don't use every time they take the family around. Like my friends here in the neighborhood, like they've got a minivan for most of the outings. It's just kind of like, okay, if the minivan's being used by the mom to go somewhere else or something, and he needs to pick one of them up from school, or those like out of the ordinary slightly instances where Golf R will be totally fine, I think. But I don't think Golf R is the vehicle to load up and take to the beach or anything like that. Like, I mean, obviously you can do it with a roof box, and if you really put your mind to it, you can make anything work, I suppose. But like, I wouldn't pick it for your sole family car, your primary family car. But I think it absolutely does work, if you need to do that, every once in a while. I think that's kind of the comfort zone I've found for those. I'm sure, again, there's people that would disagree, but that's kind of the consensus there. But it's a really spacious car for how small it is. It's kind of surprising just how much space there is. But definitely if you have the luxury, try it on for size. Try and show up at the dealer with your car seats if you can. Try it out, for size, and also just try and see what stage of life are you in, as far as do you have maybe you don't even have car seats that would make it even easier and more spacious. But, depending on what your needs are there, and how long you're going to have those needs, car seats come and go, you get rid of them, go to a different one every couple of years and stuff. So, that could also make it a temporary problem if this is a long-term purchase too. So lots of stuff to keep in mind there, but hopefully it helps you a little bit. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions of Lego. And Luke says he's not actually car shopping as far as the lift back there, but he says just impulse streaming. Yeah, it'd be fun if someone made something like that for sure, though. And Confirmation says, yeah, Speed Academy has the F31. They made a video on it recently as recently as a month ago. Nice, that's awesome. And V Mitchell, thanks for reminding us to drink there for the GR Corolla mention. And Michelle says, hello, back in the Eastern time zone in North Carolina for the week. Well, hope you're enjoying your time back here on the East Coast, and thanks for stopping by. Quagmire says, CarPlay is nice in my C8Z because of GM's crap software, but a good OEM system like Tesla's, the lack of it doesn't bother me. Gotcha. That's good. Yeah, so I mean, I guess, yeah, C8, I'm trying to remember if you have like the older, if the Z, because you don't have the 26 Pro, or maybe you have a 26, I don't know, with like the, because I think it got the new software with the new screen they put in then. I don't know. I mean, I guess it comes down to how much you use the built-in GM software. But I mean, like for us, like in the Lyric, we use satellite radio and like the audio page, and then CarPlay, and that's, we don't ever need any of the other pages, honestly. But I mean, Google Maps is actually really quick in the GM stuff. I get the built-in Google Maps is, the few times we have used it, I mean, voice is super clear, easy to dictate, addresses. It figures it out really quickly and intelligently. And yeah, I think Google Maps is actually really nicely integrated in there if you do want to skip CarPlay. So yeah, but I mean, I don't know how much you've tried the other newer stuff. I would try maybe hopping in a GM EV just to confirm that for yourself and just see what you think about the newest stuff, because I don't know. I guess the Z06 might have the how like Google built in. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's just, maybe it's not for everyone. I don't know, but I've been totally fine with it personally, and I haven't heard too many issues. Even like my buddy that has the Equinox EV, he's like, yeah, this is great, and he no complaints, I don't think, on his end either, but everyone's different. Also, Lancelot, thank you so much for another generous super chat here. He says, GR Corolla versus Dom's RX-7, which would you rather have? GR Corolla for sure. Dom's RX-7 was cool in the first movie, but it wasn't one of my favorite cars by a long shot in that movie. I basically liked almost every car better. The RX-7 was cool, but I mean, like, Hans, if we're talking RX-7s, Hans RX-7, definitely. And I see Fook agrees there, and says GR is greater than Hans, is greater than Dom's. Wow. If we're talking Hans RX-7, okay, I'd take that over the GR Corolla, even though RX-7s seem like kind of nightmares from a reliability standpoint. But that car, Hans RX-7, is so sick. So that would definitely be, yeah, that'd be a fun one to have. My ultimate, if I was ever fortunate enough to own a Fast and Furious car, though, for me, it's always the Supra from the first movie. That orange Supra is still, to me, the coolest one of the bunch. The R34 GTR is a close second in Fast and Furious, and the fourth one there. But man, that Supra in the first one, I remember as a very impressionable, like, I think it was probably 12 by the time I saw it, because I wasn't allowed to see it in theaters. So I saw it, as a Blockbuster VHS rental in probably 2002 or whatever. But it was that, seeing that car just blew me away. So that's always been my favorite one of the bunch. But let me see. And thank you again for the super chat there, Lancelot. Let me see. Michelle says, an update on the car situation where we landed on a 26 Kia Sportage hybrid. They're willing to play ball more than the other dealers. It's a nice car for the money. The wolf gray color is so nice. Nice. Yeah, they're really well done. I just had one, a few months back, or maybe it was, towards the end of last year, but they're great. Absolutely. So hope that works out well, and congrats to your family there on figuring out what they're looking for there. And he also says we'll be going in tomorrow to see what they can do. If it works, we might take it home. Nice. Well, fingers crossed. Best of luck with that. Let me see. So Luke says, is there a pink/red decoration at the bottom of your blinds, or is that something in the screen? No, that is, I guess maybe it's not as clear tonight. That's my Matt Moran Motoring on air light. It's just, yeah, it's a little bit, I guess I don't know if it's just the contrast of this camera or what that, yeah, makes it not quite as clear. I don't know if you guys ever seen it super close up, maybe in the shelf tour. Let's see if I can grab it here. I got it like somewhat hidden with the wires here, so it's not a complete mess. So it's going to be kind of messy the rest of the time. But that's, let me see, there we go, a little close up on it there. But super cool. My friend just made this a while back, and pretty impressed. He does some really cool, like crafty stuff, and that was super impressive. And it doesn't show up great on camera, so that's why I've never really used it in a lot of the videos. But yeah, I feel like in some of these live streams, it's turned out a little bit better as far as the visibility than others. I don't know, but that's that. And let's see if I can get this to work now. But there we go. Yeah, a little bit down there. So anyway, yeah, that's now you got a better look at that. But yeah, and Quagmire says they don't come with the fob anymore standard. You can buy it though for the Rivian. Okay, using the phone as the key, I'm used to with the Tesla. Haven't needed to use the credit card key at all. That's good. Yeah, Tesla does a really good job, it seems, with their all their stuff, the card access, the app access, all that. I mean, yeah, they've done a very good job for sure with the software side, and that's going to be the hardest thing, I think, going from a Tesla is, yeah, trying to find one that's, as good with the software. I think, what I've seen from others, again, putting my experiences aside, Rivian does seem like probably the best alternative, because that's what I've heard from a lot of people is like, if you are coming out of the Tesla and you want really good software, like the Rivian's probably going to be your next best bet. So you're probably on the right track there. Again, try it out for yourself, certainly, but hopefully you won't have as bad of an experience as I've had, and you'll be good. Michelle says they test drove a RAV4 too. The dealer had 2 of them designated as demos. Wow. They liked it, but again, the BS of waiting on top of being pretty pricey made it a no-go. Yeah, they're losing out on so many sales. And I mean, that's why RAV4 actually slipped here this past quarter, where it's just because they were kind of switching over, and so it's this a little bit slow to ramp up the supply there. But it's just, this waiting game, it's not, I mean, it's a good problem to have, but it doesn't do them any favors. I think they just need to balance that of like, you don't want to oversupply and have to discount either. If you're really playing everything perfectly, you have just enough for your demand. That's obviously extremely hard to match, but clearly they need to pump up the supply a little bit more. And I think they'll get there eventually, give it a couple of years, and, everything kind of, they get caught up with that. So it'll happen. But in the meantime, yeah, you miss out on a lot of potential early adopters for sure. Confirmation, thank you so much for a super chat as well. It says, fun fact, a Mazda MX-6 is the yellow car on the cover of the original Midnight Club video game, yet it never appears in the game or any video game. Interesting. I didn't know it was the MX-6. I always thought it was a Mitsubishi FTO. If you remember those from Japan, we never got it here in the States, but I always thought it was an FTO in that. I didn't know it was the MX-6. That's cool. I guess was it an MX-6 that just had aftermarket headlights? Because I could have sworn it looked just like the FTO from like, Gran Turismo 2 and all that stuff. But yeah, Midnight Club was kind of the first game I didn't love. The later ones were really good, but the first one I remember just being a little iffy with the gameplay and the cars and stuff. I was never a big fan of the first one, but the later ones were obviously so fun, at least in my opinion. But interesting. Thanks for sharing. And let me see. Where are we here? So yeah, Quagmire says, but yeah, I definitely will be test driving the R2 when it becomes available. I haven't driven an R1 since I know it's too big for me. Gotcha. Yeah, so it seems like it's going to be promising, though. I'm excited for R2, especially again for those who don't need that CarPlay, don't have any other holdups with Rivian. I think it's going to be a really nice option for sure. And 99 Chan Masters asking if I still have the Bullet. Unfortunately, not. Sold it in the spring of 2024 actually. So it's been about 2 years now has been gone. And I miss it a lot. Some days more than others, but I know it's in good hands. It's living a good life out in Utah and being enjoyed. And it's yeah, I'm happy. It's not as quite as much of a garage queen as it was whenever I had it there for the last few years. But yeah, just something I need to do just because the channel doesn't pay what it used to, and I needed the money. So that's bottom line. And there is a video if you want to see my final drive in the Bullet. It's titled "The Hardest Video I've Ever Had to Make." It's the only video out of the like 3,000 videos I've posted. It's the only one where you'll ever see me shed a tear. So yeah, check that out if you want to see the last drive in the Bullet. If that sounds a little heavy for you, feel free to skip. But yes, that's out there if you're interested. Quagmire says it's all good. Tesla has lost my interest since Tesla is finding itself like Ford was in the Model T days when they let it linger. The 3 and the Y are still basically the same car with some updates. Yeah, it worked for them for a while, but you're right, they let it linger and it doesn't stay as competitive. I mean, they tried to fight the norms of the automotive industry, and it's just like it doesn't work. You need fresh stuff. People need fresh styling to get them excited, to let them. I mean, it's the same as like iPhones or anything like that. Like you want to have a new design just so people know, oh, they have the new one. And some of it's a status kind of thing, but it's also just like you want to have improvement, you want to have change, you want to see progress, and and that's just kind of basically kind of stagnated. And I mean, the few little things they did add for like Model 3 and Model Y is like we finally have ventilated seats, which it should have had 5 or 10 years ago. It finally has ambient lighting and those other things, which are nice improvements, and it sounds like it's a really nice vehicle. I actually have a buddy who has a Model Y, the refresh, and he loves it. Actually, he came from the gas sports car world. It was a little iffy on it's his first EV, but he's actually, I just talked to him the other day, and he's actually really into it, and he really enjoys it, and he's especially right now enjoying the gas savings. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's a good car still, but yeah, I agree, they have let it linger too much. And let me see. I see we got another GRC reference there from One Car Fast. And Theodore says, you sound a whole lot better than the last time. Thank goodness you're feeling better, bro. I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely. I think I'm mostly out of the woods there, and it took forever for me to kick that cold or whatever it is. I think there's still a little bit of like now allergy stuff kind of going on, but hopefully, yeah, I'm done with whatever sickness there I had for a while. And Luke says, your job is similar to trucking. I get to see the exits for attractions, the families driving on vacation, the occasional nice mom and pop restaurant, but otherwise it's work. Yeah. Okay. So that's very, very much, yeah, the same kind of thing. You find cool new places, you see some cool new people and stuff. But yeah, and that's the other thing too. Final little thing I'll add about the whole like, media drive stuff is, yes, I'm in Malibu, or I'm in, take your pick, whatever glamorous place you want to think of. I'm there for like 36 hours. Like realistically, the way these trips go is I wake up at 4 a.m. to get to the airport by 6 a.m. for my 7 a.m. flight, sometimes even earlier. So, and I, again, because I work till midnight every night, I go to bed at midnight and I wake up at 4 a.m., throw myself in the shower, go to the airport, so I'm running on 4 hours of sleep or less sometimes. I get on a plane, I fly all day, oftentimes again to the West Coast. So I'm on a plane all day, and I'm jet lagged because then, we have a 6 o'clock dinner, but I'm on East Coast time. So I'm at 9 o'clock. So it's like a 9 o'clock dinner, and I've been up since 4 a.m. my time, which would have then been, if we're on West Coast time and I'm going to a 6 o'clock dinner, I've been up since 1 a.m. And I'm going, and then I got to socialize and, look alive. And, I mean, I still have a good time. I'm not trying to make this out like I'm, some martyr or something here, but like, it's exhausting. And then, so then you wake up, you go to sleep, wake up the next day. That day, typically, I mean, some of these trips, they're better about not putting you in a car for 8 hours, but a lot of them are still like, especially if they're constructed around writers and, people that write articles, those guys want a ton of drive time, or they just want to like drive and then goof around and go get, massage at the spa or whatever, do random other stuff, or they want to go sightseeing, or, a lot of these like influencers, for example, they'll go off and find a cool tea shop or something, whatever the case is. But like, a lot of times these things, there's a lot of driving. So it's like, okay, I'm recovering from yesterday's exhaustion. I'm in a car sometimes an entire day. For example, on this Charger event, which was really fun. Again, I'm not complaining, but on the Charger thing, we flew into Burlington, Vermont. The hotel was in Stowe, which is 45 minutes away. And that was an easy trip because it was an East Coast one. So bad example. But, a lot of these things is like, yeah, I'm in a car for 45 minutes, go to a hotel. And then you're like on the drive day, though, like we were going from Stowe, and then we had to go to Team O'Neill Rally School, which was in New Hampshire. We were in Vermont. I mean, they're not that far away, but it was like an hour and a half just to get to the place where we're doing the snow driving and sliding. And I got to stand in a parking lot for an hour and film all the B-roll and the stand-up and the what's up, everybody, and all that stuff that you guys always see. Like that, I need to spend time stationary. And then I got to make an hour and a half drive to go out to this place, do my little, loop-de-loop around in the snow or whatever for, that thing. And then, have lunch, have these great conversations with, these insiders and all that stuff. But then drive an hour and a half back when I'm exhausted, then get to the hotel. And then again, I got to spruce up and, get, a little bit energized, and then go have dinner and stuff. And then I got to, get in bed pretty early, because guess what? I got another 4 a.m. pickup. And, you get in the car and you're on the road for a little while, and you get to the airport, and then I fly all day. Typically, again, on these West Coast ones, fly all day. If I'm lucky, I'm home by dinner time. Sometimes it's after that, though. And then that's 3 days. I just shot 3 days to heck for 2 days of being in an airport and an airplane, 1 day of like nonstop driving. And, I mentioned the dinners. Yeah, there's, 2 nice little dinners squeezed in there, but like that is a very typical 3-day media drive. Like that's what it actually entails. Again, it's very glamorous, with the fun parts, but as you've seen there, it's, maybe 30% of the time is actually fun, and the other 66% of the time is me in a plane, me in an airport, me having to, go through X-ray scanners and, all the unglamorous stuff. I'm very happy, though. I haven't done any trips since the whole gigantic disaster of the airports here in the past month. But now then add in like all my buddies who've been traveling in the past couple of weeks. Then you add in a 3-hour wait in a TSA line, and all these delays, everything else. It's like, oh man, like it's not great for sure. So yeah, that's why a lot of us, like I'm starting to do more road trips too for some of these ones. And if it's something that's within 6 hours of driving or less, like I'm getting in a car now, especially with all the crazy stuff that keeps happening with flights and stuff. I'm like, nope, I'd rather not be on a plane. And so that's why I'm saying no to more press trips. Cause it's, I go through all that. I lose 3 days of work versus I could be home here, comfortable, getting sleep, having time with my family. And also I could film 3 reviews in the time it took me to do that one on one of these trips. And I'm, rested and feeling better. And, it's a tough sell. And that's why now I'm only really saying yes to press trips if I know it's going to really be advantageous to get an early video out. But oftentimes the press videos do better. And so, the press cars, I get in my driveway, delivered right to my door, even if it's a month or two after the embargo, like it ends up just not being worth doing. So anyway, but yeah, so I'm glad you can kind of relate, Luke. And again, sorry for the tangent once again here. But anyway, we got another hour here. We'll keep on going through, and I'm going to try to be more concise here so that I'm not ranting here as much. But let me see. So yeah, Theodore says it sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, but like I said, lots of perks too. And Mr. 705 says he'd like to see the cheapest GR series. Okay, well, yeah, unfortunately it's gonna be a 2028 series, but hopefully we can make that happen. We'll see. And Luke says, sometimes I get to park near areas with some attractions, but I can't spend too much time because I take 10 to 12-hour breaks for showering, eating. That doesn't allow a lot of fun time. Yeah, and that's the thing with all these things. I'm on these trips, but as you just heard, I have no time to go dip my toes in the sand and the beaches of Malibu or whatever. We also don't have our own cars typically. We have a car for the review, and maybe if you do a little bit of exploring on your drive route, you can kind of stop off for a little bit. But it's not like I can just like I don't have a car, so if I would have to Uber to like a beach or something like that, and like there's been a few times in the past, like for a while, one of my buddies lived in San Diego, and whenever there's a San Diego media drive in the past, I'd like try and skip out on the dinner, with the manufacturer and just go hang out with my buddy for the evening or whatever. But even like that, like he'd have to come pick me up, or I have to go Uber or whatever, because they have their cars designated for the media drive. And they don't want you just drive around for fun on random roads and stuff with it. So that's the other thing. You're kind of like stuck, and that's why sometimes people will say, if I post, I don't usually post when I'm actually in a place at that point in time, because I kind of like being a little bit ambiguous with my post there, because I don't always, because just for security concerns sometimes. But like even if I have been like, I am currently in this place, it's like even if there's a bar 20 minutes away, like I can't get there unless someone picks me up or something. So that's always another component of it. It's like if someone comes to the hotel and wants to, have a beer or something, like that could work. But like it's not, I can't even really meet up with people typically, even if I wanted to, and I had the time, which again I often just don't have the time, because they're just crammed in with everything the manufacturer wants to do, or I'm running back to the room to edit, to dump footage, or to sleep. So I'm not a zombie for the next day, whatever it is. So yeah, it's a lot of that. So I'm sure you can relate then, Luke, that yeah, you're in a nice place, but say, hey, look, there's the beach. Wish I could be there, or whatever, but no time for that. It's all work, no play. But Theodore's asking, is Ford coming back with a new GT? I don't think they've really said. Jim Farley in recent weeks has talked about a new Halo product after Mustang GTD, but it sounds like he's referring to something that's like an off-road thing. And he's also said it's something like they've never done before, like a segment that no one's done before, which makes me think it's obviously not a normal supercar or hypercar. And it sounds like there's some kind of like, like Baja Racer mixed with a hypercar maybe or something. I have no idea. And I'm sure he's being vague on purpose, but I don't think a proper another 4GT is coming. Now that could change, with all the F1 stuff that they're doing now with, Red Bull Racing and all that. Maybe there's some desire there to, take that F1 tech and put it into a proper, supercar for the road. I just don't know. I think it's gonna be a while before we get something like that, if that does materialize, but I don't think that's a guarantee just yet. Let me see. And Oh My GLI says, thoughts on M240i. Last generation I loved, and I did a review on it. And I haven't done a review on the current generation, but based on what I know about it and my impressions of driving both the M2 and the 230i, I can make an educated guess of how M240i would feel. And obviously I'm familiar with B58 and all the other stuff that it has that motor, super and all that. M240i seems like it'd be really, really great. Really fun. And it's a nice and smaller car still. It grew for this new generation. If you want something smaller, go for the last generation. But I like M240i, and I'll even go so far as to say, because I really love a convertible for a future, little backup car or whatever after the Fiat. If I don't get GR Corolla, cheers. But for a while there, they did the M240i convertible, and it has a back seat, because for me, I need a back seat in any convertible I would buy. And so it has a semi-usable back seat, and I'm like, it's actually appealing enough that I would consider owning that last generation with the convertible version. I think it'd actually be a really fun car, and a kind of a unique offering. I guess you have Z4 that kind of does the same thing with two seats, but like as far as a 4-seater convertible goes, like that's not a very common combo. And a lot of the others, are a little less sporty and a little bigger. Like Audi S5 had the convertible, a little while back. So there are some others, but M240i seems like a really fun package. I do feel like I'm partial to the prior generation more so than the newer one, just because again that it did get bigger and heavier, and it did change the car, and I kind of like the tossable nature. And this is why I think I actually still prefer prior gen M2 over current M2. Current M2 is a little bulkier than I'd like. If you're going something as big as current gen M2, I would rather just be in a Mustang GT. Because you're not far off from a size standpoint. You just get so much more car in the Mustang, in my opinion. M2 it's good, but last gen M2 to me was more magical because it was smaller. It was a little more scrappy in nature, shorter wheelbase, I believe, and just like short wheelbase is like a pretty good shortcut to fun times typically for me. I mean, it can be sketchy too. You got to know what you're doing, but like, the Supra's got a short wheelbase. I love that. Even GR86 of them have a pretty short wheelbase, and like short wheelbases give you a lot of that very eager oversteer and just makes it very lively. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you engaged. And it also means that it can be very, very playful at the drop of a hat. And the cars where you can just kind of, tap the gas and bring the back end around, in a reasonable manner. Like that to me is always what is guaranteed to put a smile on my face. And so the last Gen 2 series, I think, does that a little bit better than the new one. So that's one of the things I really love about those older ones in particular. And Luke says, my fun time is usually talking to other truckers at the truck stop, watching YouTube in my sleeper while I try to relax. Nice. Well, I'm glad you still have that, and especially the socializing, I'm sure, because otherwise it'd probably be kind of solitary without that. So it's great you still get that socializing. And yeah, that's the best thing about the media drives is, getting to chat not only with the executives, but also my fellow car reviewers and compare notes. Like, am I crazy? Or, like, is everyone down on revenue? Is it just me? That kind of stuff. It's very much nice to have the camaraderie with people who are doing the same thing as you and talking shop and getting that, because otherwise, like in both of our jobs, it's like, you don't regularly interact with people like you do if you're in a cubicle in an office or, something where you have regular coworkers, so yeah, that's nice. B. Mitchell says, don't forget that Doug likes to hear his own voice. Yes, there is certainly some of that. I wouldn't disagree. And I certainly don't want to ever come across that way myself because, it's not my personality, that's for sure. And Quagmire says, the rear door on the electronic rear releases has always been bizarre to me. The front is easy for manual release, but the back in Tesla is a complicated process and total power loss. Yeah, and it's not great because, if you're someone who isn't, into that kind of stuff, isn't nerdy enough to, figure that stuff out, like it can very much not be great. And Lancelot says, I honestly can't remember the last time I watched one of Doug's videos. Yeah, and I mean, I will say, because YouTube does show me, not on an individual level, but they show me like, here's the videos that your viewers watched in the last 30 days. And there's still a lot of Doug videos on there. So a lot of you, I'm sure, enjoy Doug. No shame. He does some cool cars for sure. And, he's funny in many cases. And, he's obviously got a huge following for a good reason. So it's, even if I have, objections to how he got there or some of his tactics, he's laughing all the way to the bank and he's successful. So, it's the way it goes. It's the way the world works. So, but I'm just saying, I know a lot of you probably do enjoy Doug, and I'm not here to, bash that, So, but anyway, Dennis says, do you see the Type R non-hybrid actually ending since emissions laws may loosen? Or do I see Type R non-hybrid actually? I mean, Honda doesn't seem excited about doing any kind of hybridization for Type R. So I wouldn't worry about that honestly too much. We'll see what happens. Like, there's also been rumors recently, apparently, that GR86 may go hybrid. I'm not convinced the new GR86 is coming back because I don't see, we see how far behind they are with, whatever the Celica thing is. We have no signs of a new Supra on the horizon. MR2, they literally just said, I did a rant about this, like 2029 or 2030 for MR2. We might have a little bit of a drought or just old product for a while. I hope that at least GR Corolla, if Corolla is still a carryover platform-wise, which it seems like Corolla is going to get the same kind of treatment as Camry most likely, where Camry isn't new really underneath. They did a few little changes, and there's some, some tweaks to rigidity and stuff, but like it's largely the same, platform underneath. And there are some carryover things from last gen Camry. I think you're going to see the same with Corolla, which, I mean, honestly, it works because, I mean, like Camry's on fire with sales, so I don't think it's bad, especially if you're starting with a good product. And I think with Corolla, you'll probably see a similar kind of thing, and that means hopefully they can just copy and paste, the power plant and keep that going for GR Corolla for a new generation. But aside from that, I don't see much, from Toyota. But getting back to Honda, they are obviously, as you see, they're killing off their EVs. Like they have no faith in any of that stuff, or faith in themselves for that matter. But I don't think that there's any interest to hybridize Type R at all. I mean, they're expanding hybrid for the other stuff, but even SI they haven't touched. They have instead Civic Hybrid, which is as fast or faster than SI, but they're not touching SI. So like SI is still staying the way it is, and I think they know that that's important for the buyers of that. And same goes for Type R. I mean, I think there's going to be changes to the engine to make sure that it is compliant with Euro 7. And, Japan apparently has some new emission stuff coming in. So their stuff is, they're going to need to still progress, and it doesn't matter what we do in the States here because they're going to, make sure that these are global cars and they can sell them everywhere. But yeah, I don't think you need to worry about a hybrid Type R until we're at least in the 2030s. And like, for example, there's a refresh they already said is coming this year for Type R. Don't expect anything crazy. It's gonna be the same as, the very mild refresh you got for regular Civic and Integra here in the past year, where, you're gonna barely be able to tell the difference. But there'll be some little tweaks. I'm sure they'll throw out some numbers and some percentages. There's 3% better rigidity or whatever it is, and make a big fuss about it. But it's gonna largely be the same probably until we get into the 2030s, and then you might see something. It comes down to, again, what the regulatory environment looks like at that point in time, what the world looks like at that point in time. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns. So I don't think they're even thinking that far ahead right now. And now that they've done this, throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing with EVs, I don't think, I think they're going to very much try and drag their heels as long as they can, especially on the performance stuff. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. And Quagmire says 24 model year was the first year with the Android Auto based system, for the C8. Gotcha. Okay, so then you have it then. So probably, you're probably used to that stuff already. And One Car Fast says Superverse Ferrari 355. Yep, more than you can afford, pal. Right? That's such a great race. I did get to stop at Neptune's Net at one time, actually back when I was in Malibu in like 2016. Got to take I'd never have eaten there. I desperately, or actually, you know what? We did eat at Neptune's Net. Yeah, we did, but I didn't get to sit. I wanted to sit at the bench where they sat, but there was someone sitting there. But I did get the, I almost forgot. I did eat there and got the shrimp. And it was good. Yeah. But yeah, that's such an iconic race. And also Quagmire says, but fair to check it out. Biggest issue is the Android Auto system makes the usable space on the older screen setup smaller as the static stuff takes up more room. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, if that's a deal breaker, then Rivian might be better. But I don't love the customization of the Rivian system. It's very rigid, and they very much have like their walled garden of like, it's an Apple approach of like, you must do it this way, even though Apple's gotten better with changing stuff in the past couple of years. But that's the only thing about Rivian. Play around with it if you can, if you haven't already. I mean, even if you're not interested in an R2, or if you're not interested in an R1, if you're really excited for R2, before you waste too much time or put a deposit down or an order, at least go to a Rivian place if you can, or try and get your hands on an R1 and just play with the infotainment. You don't need to drive it. Just sit in the parking lot. Tell me you want to just have a half an hour to like play around with the screen, see what you think about it. Maybe you already have, but if you haven't, highly recommend doing that before you really put your sights set on the R2 there. Vishal says was not always a fan of Kias, but after seeing it, definitely liked the Sportage. Nice car for the money. We're looking at an EX trim. Yeah, the Sportage is one of the best priced ones in its segment, and I kind of compare them all in my review. But it's really well done. Yeah, and for the money, it's really a good value. You got the 10-year powertrain warranty, and with the hybrids, it's even longer, I think, for the battery and stuff. But yeah, it's a good vehicle, and let me see. Also, Vishal, sorry I missed your member message here till now, but thanks so much for being a member for 23 months now. I really appreciate that. He says, "Did you see the story of Honda Japan employees wanting the current CEO out because of the whole EV disaster?" I haven't heard that. Interesting. Hmm. I mean, I'm not surprised. And I mean, even in their release, the CEO did say, or whoever, I don't know if it was just a PR thing or what, but they were like, we recognize a lot of people spend a lot of time working on these things, but we just feel like we can't compete. Which yeah, it's such a flawed logic, in my opinion, too. I won't go down this rabbit hole, but like the only thing I'll say is like, their whole reasoning for dumping the E is like, oh, we couldn't put out a competitive product. But I mean, maybe Honda and Acura truly think they make some of the best stuff ever. Like maybe they truly think like they have the best compact SUV, the best pickup truck, the best SUV, the best luxury. Maybe they truly believe that. Maybe it's that much of an echo chamber. I don't know. But like they should recognize, and most car companies do understand, like they can't be everything to everyone. They can't be the best at everything. They hone in on the things they do well. They are proud of the things that they think they did really well on. But everyone understands there's compromises in every car. And the same thing would go for this RSX or any of these other EVs coming. Yeah, there's some shortcomings maybe. And maybe you tweak some stuff. That's the other thing. It's like there was no ability to tweak. Like it's one thing if like the RSX was locked in. So maybe that one's a little bit harder. But the Zero Series stuff is far enough out that like, okay, like one of the things I heard about the Zero Series Saloon, which that one's the one that's supposed to come until 2027 sometime. Okay, like they were saying it was gonna be sized like a Tesla Model S, so big, and also it's gonna be kind of expensive. And they were worried, okay, well, it's a Honda, and if we ask 60 plus grand or whatever they're planning on asking for it, people weren't gonna go for it. Okay, well, you have Acura. Like the solution here is, okay, with this car, we can't sell this thing for less than $60,000. How do you fix that? You put an Acura badge on it. Then you have no problems. Like literally anything up to $100,000, put an Acura badge on it. Okay, now you got people maybe on board again. Like there was ways to mitigate this disaster and to, again, I'm not trying to sit here and play armchair product planner, but like it seemed like there was no flexibility in their thinking at all. Or to say, hey, look, like, yes, maybe the RSX is not going to be world beating, but our choices are we ship the RSX, we send it to dealers as is, and we make the best of it. But at least those people coming out of the ZDX, those people coming out of RDXs that want to stay with the brand, they have something. Whether it's better than the other stuff, who knows? But like, it's like they had no faith in anyone to be loyal to their brand, which, like, damn, like, give yourselves a little bit of credit, especially Honda and Acura, like, especially Honda in particular, huge loyalty. I mean, look at the people that bought Prologues. Clearly not the best EV, but people bought them. And I even think, look at CRV. Like CRV is objectively worse in multiple ways. It has like, it's as expensive as all the competitors while not giving you a panoramic roof in the top version. You can't get ventilated seats in the top version. You have one of the smallest screens in the segment. And like they do some things really well. Like they have, one of the biggest cargo areas. The driving is really good. The hybrid is really, a nice powertrain. But like it's clearly one of the worst in multiple areas, depending on how you view it and what your priorities are. But like people still line up, and it's the number 2 selling vehicle in that segment. And I think in general in the car world, outside of RAV4 and F-150. So like that, I could make the same argument for CRV. CRV is objectively uncompetitive in many ways and worse, but it's still a top seller. And the RSX could have been the same thing, because again, they did move a decent amount of the ZDX and Prologues, and they sell a ton of RDX. So they've chosen, instead of saying the same thing and having the same mindset that they have with CRV and all these others, they're saying we're going to have nothing for people for 2+ years, because new RDX is not coming until 2028. So, or maybe it's 2027 count. No, I think it's 2028. I think it's actually 2028. So you have 2 full years of nothing for people to buy unless they want to go up to MDX or down to ADX or Integra. Like, that is a horrible position to put yourselves in. Like, I don't care how bad RDX was. RDX could have, I don't even know how bad. Like, I can't even think of a hypothetical terrible situation. But outside of like it just being stuck in recall hell forever, like, as long as it was a functioning product, it would be better than no product at all, in my opinion. And it certainly couldn't be any worse than the ZDX, which I think ZDX isn't terrible, but like, ZDX was literally a rebadged Blazer. Like, I don't know how RDX could have possibly been worse than that. Like, there's no. All right, I went down the rabbit hole. I apologize, but like, yes, I don't blame people for wanting the CEO out. That sounds like a horrible move and a shock, and just, yeah, and honestly, like, I agree. I think he should go. If no one, or just whoever, the corporate culture, I don't even know if it's just the one person. I think it's just the entire, all the decision makers. No one had the boldness to stand up for the right move. Again, I'm not, and this isn't about an EV versus gas thing. Like, put that whole thing aside. It's just like, you have no product. You have a giant gap in the most important segment for your brand. You've got nothing for 2+ years. And the thing that you have to sell people this year even has been on sale since 2018. Extremely stale. Like, it's just, like, it's horrible planning. And maybe there were some missteps that they made. And I think they were banking on everyone was going to be running to EVs and there was going to be no resistance or no pullback or anything like that, which was really foolish. But like, if that's truly what they believed, they thought that RDX was going to come in, or RSX was going to come in and replace RDX, and they're going to be off to the races. Like, again, they could have righted that ship and figured things out. And like I've said in the past, they could have sent RDX to Magna Steyr and had them build it, or hired, somebody to keep building RDXs, and find ways to swap in new parts if suppliers can't make the old parts. Do an interior redo and do new parts. Just there are ways, because, and I'm not just saying this like as some naive person, like, because I've seen other car companies do it. I've seen other car companies do last minute switches and transitions and saves where they're like, like, we can't not have something here, so we keep some old thing going. And you look at Ram, for example. I mean, I don't love it, but like, look at Ram, said, crap, we screwed up with not having the V8. And what did they do? They said, okay, how do we possibly get this back as fast as possible? And I listened to Tim Kuniskis. He told us all on a big conference call, months ago, whenever they were announcing the V8. He's like, we worked nonstop. He's like, I pulled people from other programs. I said, this is an all hands on deck thing. We need to get this V8 back in this thing yesterday. Like, and it was truly an all hands on deck thing. And now, they got people lining up for the V8 again. They got, orders out the wazoo, and it's their, and that's how you fix a crappy situation. You get everyone involved. You do the best you can with your resources, what you have to work with, and you fight like hell to get there. Instead of being like, well, we've spent the past 4 years developing this thing, and looks like we ended up with a bad product. Throw it in the trash bin and flush $15 billion down the drain. Like what? Like, no. Like, you polish that turd and get it to the dealer. Like, that's what you do. Like, I don't know. Anyway, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I don't even know if it's the CEO's fault, but the decision makers, the product planners, all those people, like, fresh blood. Because clearly, like, if you have such a lack of reading the room and not following the industry, again, we saw these pullbacks in the EV market years ago. This is not something that just happened the second Trump got elected, or the second, because we saw this in Europe. They pulled their tax credits in 2024. And that year was disastrous for the EV sales. The EV sales plummeted in Europe in 2024, but guess what? They rebounded in 2025. And the actual appeal of EVs started to take over on their own and stand on their own two legs without the incentives. And now they've brought back some incentives as well for 26 year. Like 25 showed there's this ebb and flow. But so I mean, if you were in Japan in some C-suite in 2024, were you not looking at what happened in Europe? And you had 2 years. We're now in 2026. You had 2 years to stop this Titanic from sinking. And where were they? Asleep at the wheel, it seems. Again, I don't know the inside scoop, so I don't want to judge. But again, other car companies have solved these problems and fixed these kinds of things in similar kinds of scenarios. And you roll with what you got. A lot of times you don't have the best product right off the bat, but you roll with what you got. And they just, the fact that you would rather throw that out the window is just crazy to me. Anyway, all right, half an hour to go. Let's stick to the questions here. So, B. Mitchell says the sign is too much of an angle on the windowsill. It might be better on the shelf behind you with a plain white background. Yeah, just back there, it's so out of focus and so far away. I have tried that in the past, I thought, but maybe if I move my chair around or something, maybe I'll experiment with it. But and whenever I did the other angle on the camera, it was a little bit better, but this one's a little more wide, so it's just not as great. I'll keep having to play around with it. I appreciate the feedback. Let me know if you have any other ideas. For sure, always looking to try and improve this a little bit. I need to get some better lighting back there on the shelves and stuff too. Now that, I have all the lights off in here aside from my ring light pretty much. But anyway, Luke says, my brothers don't understand my job. They'll say, oh, you're going to Philly? Get a cheesesteak. No, I have to deliver a product and probably no good truck parking near a cheesesteak place. You get it, Luke. Yes, I get the same kind of stuff from family members or from friends or other people that, I'm going to this place. I'm like, oh, you got to go to the beach or you got to, do this, that, and the other. I'm like, oh man, do I wish I had, 3 days to goof around and, wander around and get lost. And I just, unfortunately not the reality. So I'm glad you can relate, Luke. It's always nice to know that you're not alone and there's others that are finding themselves in similar predicaments sometimes. And honestly, that makes it a little bit more painful sometimes. I mean, the worst one, we did the Hawaii trip for the Grand Highlander a few years back, and that was when they revealed Tacoma too. That one, we actually had 5 days there because they understood how long it took to fly and stuff. So that was a longer one. They actually did build in an entire free day, which was very nice of them to do that. And they did actually have a set of activities. People could, if you want to go snorkeling, you want to go do whatever, they had those and you could, do some of these experiences. But even that, I was so busy editing, unfortunately, I had no time to do any of that stuff. So the final day before I left, because I was going to leave the next morning, but the final evening there, I just was like, okay, I'm going to get as much of this done as I can. I'm going to give myself a half an hour the very end of the day before I had to run off to the next dinner. And I went down. I was like, I got to just put my feet in the sand, just go to the beach for half an hour. And we were staying at a beachfront place. That one I was actually able to just walk, outside my hotel there and get there. But so that was the one where I was like, I'm going to take a few minutes just because I'm going to kick myself if I went to Hawaii and never actually stuck my feet in the water. So I did that. But that makes it more painful because if you're in these glamorous places and you can't have fun and you want to, the cars are fun, but if you want to just go and do something selfish for yourself, you often just don't have the time. And it's not worse because that's a hell of an office to have be overlooking, the beaches of Hawaii while you're sitting there and editing a video. Definitely the best office I've ever had. But it is I wish I was just down there hanging out at the pool with all those other people and whatever. But it's again, could always be worse. And Michelle says Honda CR-V wasn't even a contender because of how expensive the lowest hybrid trim is. Yeah, they're always the high. Hondas are consistently the highest priced vehicles in their segment. And oftentimes you don't get more for your money. Sometimes you get slightly better, power or fuel efficiency or, maybe reliability. But as I've said, even with the 1.5T, that's out the window now. The hybrid seems mostly better, but not perfect either. So it's just Honda's really, of all the brands, this isn't even because of the EV thing, but of all the brands in the past year or two that's really dropped out of favor with me, Honda's one of them. And it's not because of the company or it's not because of anything. It's just like objectively, like the products are good, but they're too expensive. Dealers are jerks about them. And it's just like, again, they're not keeping up. It's the same as these other, companies. If you're not keeping up, like, like the Tesla stuff, like if you're not going to try and compete and you're not giving 110%, you're trying to coast on your reputation, like, especially reviewers and people that are in that, follow this stuff like you guys do, like, we see right through it. Like, okay, well, Kia, like, Vishal saying Kia gives they're doing a really good car. And I've always said, like, the Koreans are giving 110% because they have to, because you still have the people stuck in the 1980s. Oh, they're garbage, blah, blah, blah. So Kia and Hyundai, they gotta, do bold styling to get people's attention. They have to, have a better interior than everyone, so that if you actually give them a chance, you sit down, you're like, holy crap, this is all like way nicer than I expected. The same with Genesis, especially uphill battle there, trying to fight the established German luxury brands. So that's why the Genesis interior has to be plusher, has to be more impressive, has to wow you, because, they don't have the luxury of resting on their laurels or resting on their reputation. They got to work for it. And, a worker that's got to work for it versus the guy who can sit back and relax and try and coast in their cushy job or whatever, like, you're not going to get as good of a product out of that worker than you will the guy who's got something to prove, that's fighting for his job. They're the ones that are putting in the hard work. And like, that's the Korean brands, for example, versus the Hondas that, can rest on their reputation and people are going to line up and buy them no matter what you do. That's not a good recipe for a hungry brand, that wants to improve. So again, and Honda makes lots of good stuff. I'm not trying to stereotype or paint with too broad of a brush here. I think they do some really genuinely good stuff. But just a lot of stuff where I'm like, this is just too expensive. Even if it is great, it's too expensive. There's others that do a good enough job, maybe not quite as good, or maybe actually better, but regardless, it's cheaper and by a significant margin, which is really important to a lot of people these days. And you also get more of a discount with, the Koreans and many of the others versus the Honda as well. But anyway, Fook says, I like Han's RX-7 the most out of all the Fast and Furious cars, but the GR is better to own, I think. Either way, even Jesse's Jetta is greater than crashed orange Supra, greater than ... greater than Dom's RX. Okay, I'm going to go into hiding. No, I mean, yeah, you don't like Dom's RX? We get it. I totally understand. Yeah, I hated the wheels on that car, though. That was the one thing. The graphics were cool, but the wheels just... I did love the hideaway NOS under the passenger seat. That was a really cool touch, for sure. And let me see. Tim says it's definitely an MX-6. Belongs to my buddy Dustin Mischief TV, who was a founder at Techademics. He still has the car. Oh wow, that's a really cool inside scoop. I remember Mischief TV. I had a couple of those DVDs back when. I don't know how many of you remember all that stuff, but like you buy the Super Speeders DVDs, you buy the Mischief DVDs, because this was, I mean, like, I guess, like, I do remember, like, back in the day, like, downloading, like, street racing videos on, like, LimeWire, way back in the day. But, like, it was, like, the early days where, like, there was no trailer. It was, like, you read the title, it's like, ooh, like, SRT4 versus Cobalt SS. That sounds cool. I'm going to download that. And you wait, 15 minutes for it to download or whatever. And then you get a, 480p video if you're lucky of, this like 30-second drag race that someone shot on a handy cam or whatever. But those DVDs, the Mischief DVDs, like, they're like trailers and, cool graphics. So you could like kind of see what you were getting yourself into with buying it. And that's cool that the founder of that. That's really, really cool. And also the founder of Midnight Club. That's awesome, man. The stories you and I'm sure him especially could tell. And man, I'd love to like interview them someday. That'd be really, really cool. I have so many questions. So many questions. But anyway, thanks for sharing that. And confirmation says, I wish there was a Fast and Furious movie based in Australia. I need an HSV Maloo drifting with a kangaroo in the back. I mean, give them enough time. I'm sure they'll have a spinoff or something. That's something that is absolutely happen with enough time, I'm sure. And Nico says, took the blue blur to the hockey game. It was a nice win, and ripped some donuts in the lot courtesy of the crowd asking for it. Man, you live life in the Fast and Furious lane, that's for sure. That's impressive that you didn't have anyone try and shut that down. That's crazy. And Quagmire says TSA lines are better now that they're getting paid. Yeah, so they just started getting paid though the past couple of days. So hopefully that has brought some of them back to work. But I know there were some that did quit. Maybe they'll come back. I know a lot of people, they don't like the uncertainty, and I don't blame them. Not getting paid for however long it was. Especially if so many people living paycheck to paycheck. You can't have a job you can't depend on. So we'll see. I'm sure most of it will come back, but I know a lot of them did leave for good too. So it might be a little bit of a lag to kind of get that back to full service there. And let me see. Mr. 705 says, if that series is in 2028, I'll still be here to watch for the GR. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. Let me see. Michelle says, random happened to be outside earlier, and a neighbor down the street came up to me asking about the TX and what we think of it. He's thinking of replacing his 14 Odyssey, so another possible TX sale for the neighborhood. Nice. Yeah, I see a ton of them around here. They're very popular. It seems like people really, it's resonating with people, and it's well done, and I think it deserves it. It's really, really well done for sure. And Lance Foss says, I'm sure mine shows me binge watching Mr. Ballin. Yeah, well, like I said, it's never like super precise. It's always just like a conglomerate of the past, 450,000 views in the past month or whatever. What did those viewers all watch, and what are the common ones? So it's always just a lot of the same kind of stuff. But Doug is one of those ones that is absolutely. There's some overlap there for sure. But Sark says, hey Matt, what do you think of the new Golf Rs? It's insane that they can make what they can make with just a tuner, an intake, and a tune. Yeah, that EA888 motor is really good for modability. And yeah, they are beasts. Even stock, they are really fast. But yeah, you do a light tune, they fly. And actually, I did do a tuned quick drive on a regular Mark 8 Golf R that had a stage 2, I think it was stage 2 tune. But if you look up, this was a few years back, a buddy of mine had a tuned Mark 8. I took it for a spin. It was much better. Even like the transmission tuning was better with the aftermarket tune, but it was fast. I think he was somewhere in the low 3-second range with that thing. But if you look up quick drive Golf R, it should come up on the channel. You can see my thoughts on a tuned Golf R. But yeah, they are absolutely beasts. For sure. And that's one thing, compared to the GR Corolla, Golf R has way better tunability and ability to make huge power. Same even with, the VBWX, really responds well to mods. You make a ton of power on those too, but Golf R even more so. Very, very good for that. Yeah. And he says, I went the WRX route, as you know, because it's what I wanted character-wise. And wanted a manual, but I see why people love the Golf Rs. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever driven one or if you're just seeing what they do online, but yeah, if you get behind the wheel one, it's also just like because of how fast the DSG fires off the shifts and the launch is so hard and everything. It's just like it even is faster than the numbers might make you think it is. It flies with that all-wheel drive grip and everything. And Nico says you should switch that license plate for a Steelers or Pirates one. Orioles, tisk tisk. Not sure which license plate we're talking about here. I guess it was whenever I was turned. Let me see. So I don't have any license plate frames. The plates there were, I don't have any Orioles stuff, but the plates there were just regular PA plates. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. Or maybe, is there any other, I don't know what else you could be referring to there. But yeah, no Orioles stuff. I'm a Pirates fan when it comes to baseball for sure, despite them being heartbreaking every year. But let me see. It's one of the luxuries of not having any time to watch the games anymore, as I don't have as much of a letdown from that. But Michelle says, my parents really did like the HRV as a car, but lack of hybrids what ruled it out in the end. Honda's losing so many sales to the Corolla Cross. Yeah, I'm sure they are. And Mr. 705 says, I wish you were on the Honda product team. Well, If anyone from Honda is listening and you want the obnoxious outsider to come in and shake things up, send me an email, give me a phone call. I'm open to offers. And that applies to any brands because YouTube is not treating me super well from a view standpoint and earning standpoint. So if a car company gave me, yeah, I mean, no one actually would ever offer that, I don't think. But if someone was ever crazy enough to want my input on an employment basis, I may just take that because that'd be. I mean, like it would actually be really fun. I always wanted to. That's why I went to college for mechanical engineering. Ended up not making it through that program because I just didn't have what it took. But I wanted to be a mechanical engineer because I wanted to develop cars and be on the inside there and actually make cool stuff. And so I've always been jealous of the product planners and those people. I mean, I know, especially these days, I'm not as envious of their jobs because they have to, figure out tariff stuff and unpredictable policy and everything else. But like, I've always said it'd be so fun to, actually be able to make a positive change in the automotive world from the manufacturer side. Obviously, maybe we have slight influence here on the journalist side, but like, to actually be able to, kind of nudge a car in a certain direction or make a decision about something, like that would be really, really cool someday to be able to do that. And it's always fun. That's another one of the fun perks going on these trips is talking to some of these product planners sometimes. You can't talk to them about too much because you can never talk about future product. That's always the running joke. It's like, you talk about future product, you're not going to get anything back. But like, talking to them about just, the challenges of the industry or, a little bit of what it's like to do those jobs, it's really cool. It's really kind of fun to get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. But I'd love to give my input someday if anyone ever valued my input enough. That'd be cool. Sarek says it's insane how Honda has amazing brand loyalty. I will say though, the Ridgeline feels so nice, even though I love the current gen. They need to do a redesign. Yeah, I mean, and one of my close friends has a Ridgeline. He bought probably maybe 6 years ago or so now. I can't remember. I think this is maybe 2017, 2018, something like that. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, he loves that thing. He's driven it across country, I think 2 or 3 times now. It's treated him really well. Ridgeline is one of those food products that still is brilliant. I think the Ridgeline is excellent. Every single person who's like, what truck should I get? I'm like, Ridgeline. Unless you're going to do intense off-roading or intense towing, or you need to have crazy payload capabilities or whatever. But like, if you are just doing what the average truck buyer does, which is mall crawl, get a Ridgeline. They're so good. I love them. And that's the truck I would have if, again, of all Honda's shortcomings, if I needed to have a truck, it would be a Ridgeline, unless I needed, again, more capability. But let me see here. So Fuchs says, I love the Element, but I don't know if EV can keep the outdoor active spirit of the Element, though. I'm even okay with hybrid. Yeah, Element would be great in any format. I think a gas one would be great, a hybrid one would be great, and I think an EV one, if done well, could also be good too. But they have to just do it right, which and tall order for Honda these days. And also confirmation. Sorry, I missed your couple of super chats here, but first, thank you for first one. There says Paul Skeens, Jason Bay, Andrew McCutcheon, rank 'em. Andrew McCutcheon he's the greatest in modern Pittsburgh times, in my opinion. Jason Bay was cool. That was kind of when I started to kind of drop out a little bit. Paul Skeens is cool too. I saw him pitch actually last year, the one game we went to last year he was pitching at. He seems cool, but Andrew McCutcheon, I mean, he's such a stand-up, classy athlete as well. And the fact that he came back to Pittsburgh, unfortunately, we lost him again, which I think, is mostly the Pirates' fault, not his fault. I can't blame him for, going for greener pastures. But like, McCutcheon, I love McCutcheon. I would say McCutcheon is the greatest since Clemente, probably. I mean, you could make a case for Barry Bonds, later on, and there were some others too that were pretty good. As a kid, I loved Brian Giles. For anyone who goes back to 90s and early 2000s MLB stuff, but McCutcheon is arguably, in my opinion, the best since Clemente. He's great. And confirmation also, thank you for another super chat. He says, have you ever driven a Honda Accord Cross Tour? I have not. Never actually drove one. It's funny because one of the neighbors, one of the people who regularly shows up at their house, I don't know how they're related or what, but I see a Cross Tour on a fairly regular basis. It may actually be out there right now. So I see them all the time, but I've never actually driven one. I have no idea. I feel like it wouldn't drive like in a regular Accord. Maybe if any of you have driven an Accord Cross Tour, let me know what it's like because I'm kind of curious. But that's a car that's so niche that I don't think anyone would watch me review one. So I'll probably never actually drive that one. But yeah, I'm probably not going to lose any sleep over that. But yeah, it's a fun one to think about. And let me see. So where are we here? Nico says, bring back the Insight. Insight would be cool. Yeah, that's another one that I think was, yeah, it's a shame that they didn't stick with it or try and make that more of a serious, Prius competitor. Because I think that could have had a future too. Same thing for the Clarity, the Honda Clarity. Like they had the right idea. Like, which I mean, Clarity was super unpopular, so maybe the consumers would disagree here, but like Clarity was like, hey, let's do the Toyota thing and let's have Clarity had they had a regular hybrid, they had the plug-in hybrid, and they had the EV. And I actually drove the plug-in hybrid version. It was a quick little like weird, they had like a half a day weird media drive for Clarity at the New York Auto Show one time when Honda brought me out to the New York Auto Show back in like, I don't know, 2017, 2018. And it was, we literally just drove it up. If anyone's familiar with New York City, we drove it up like what's it called? I don't drive on it enough to know. This is the Palisades Parkway or whatever it is there. It's like this super narrow, like there's 2 lanes on each side. There's guardrails like 3 inches from the shoulder or from like the road lines that begin to go to a non-existent shoulder. It's like driving on like a slot car track, but in real life, and you're not on rails. Like it's terrifying, in my opinion. And so like I just briefly like they had us drive up to like a rest stop and then turn around and come back and go back to the hotel. It was like the weirdest things. I had like no ability to actually like properly film a video, and I was like, no one's gonna watch this anyway, so I just didn't film it. And it was fine because Honda didn't seem to care because they invited me on other things in the past. After that, they since don't invite me to anything, which I don't know if they, why that is, but I don't really care. But yeah, but that was, Clarity was another one of those. I think they had the right idea, but they didn't push it hard enough. The styling was a little weird, which I don't think helped. But like, I think they would have stuck with it and kept refining stuff instead of giving up all the time. Like Honda just always gives up. Like just have a little faith in yourself and your product and just maybe stick with it and do a second generation. Sometimes first generation isn't the greatest for some of these things. And you refine it, you come back with a second generation, Toyota BZ. Once again, first gen, everyone was like, oh, this thing sucks. I actually thought it was pretty good if you didn't need to have super fast charging, but like, or a bunch of power, but like the new refresh here now is fantastic. Now it's selling well. And, I think I'm glad that Toyota stuck with it. They could have pulled the plug, but they didn't because they believe in themselves. Go Toyota. Everyone should believe in themselves. If you think you've done something well and you worked hard at it, go with it. Anyway, and I see Rashina says the same thing there. Issues Honda lacks the passion and lacks upkeep. Absolutely. And Nintendo Atari Killer says, polish that turd, get it to the dealership, LMAO. Right. I mean, but, yeah, I think that's even if we go to that worst case scenario, like better than nothing. Anyway, I'm glad you got a laugh out of that. And Regina also says, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name, said, I think Honda needs to smash it out of the gate with solid state in the next decade if they want to do well. Acura needs to do more, be better utilized as an actual luxury brand also, and more hybrids and EVs. Yeah. But they've already lost. I don't think they can catch up. You look at, Honda, I don't even think Honda's looking at solid state. Like, I think the only companies I know that are working on, that are actively right now, as far as Western non-Chinese companies that are working on solid state, are Mercedes, Toyota, and Nissan. I think are the only ones. I think even Ford is looking at like just going for one of the Chinese packs once they're coming around. So there may be a few others. I think actually Hyundai might be doing it as well. But like so, there's like four. Like everyone else, I don't think is really doing a whole lot. BMW, I think, is kind of dabbling in it with partners, but like I don't think that Honda's even working on that. And also, like again, it's I think Cadillac kind of understands this. Like, they're getting people converted now so that whenever this is even more in demand and more mainstream, because they understand, this is the direction we're heading, regardless of what happens. Like, this is the way that the ball is rolling. Like, there's you're building up this brand familiarity, you're building up this loyalty for a new brand, and these brands are poaching stuff from Acura and Honda left and right as a result. But like, it's going to be too late. Like, because Honda's going to have no experience. They're going to have no customer base for EVs anymore because they're all these Prologue lessees are going to have to go somewhere else. And so they're not going to have anything. I guarantee you, mark my words, like bookmark this and come back in 2030. I guarantee you Honda will maybe, I don't know if they're even going to be one of the first because they're always so scared to do anything. But I think all you will see from Honda whenever we're inevitably in an EV future, or, more so than we are now, they're going to just rebadge Chinese cars. They're absolutely, Honda will be a badge and nothing more. Maybe they'll, tune the suspension as much as they tune stuff on the Prologue compared to the GM platform. But basically what they just did with GM, they're going to do that with the Chinese brands, or maybe they'll do it again with GM. But I think Honda is going to say, we can't do this ourselves. We don't have faith in ourselves. Let's just go and slap badges on something again and water down our brand again. And that's what you'll see. And they won't be the only ones. There will be others too who will fall in behind in this race. And once they finally realize it, it's going to be far too late. And the Chinese will again be already living in the 2030s when we're, stuck in the Stone Ages. And they're going to say, okay, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And so they're going to join them. And they're going to, and I think this is one of the potential entrance plans for the Chinese brands, in my opinion. I have no facts to back this up, but I kind of see the Chinese, even if they can't come in with their own brands, they're going to say, okay, well, who cares if it's a BYD on the surface? Like, we bring in our BYDs, but we buy out Mitsubishi or these other struggling brands that, you take a brand that it just has a dealer network and it has factories. I guess Mitsubishi doesn't have factories in the States, so bad example. But like, you take, someone who has factories here, who has a brand that's weak enough they're willing to sell and, sell out. And then, I think, or even just do partnerships. And, again, we saw this in the 70s and the 80s with all the rebadging. We already see it in China, with all these brands in China where they can't sell. It's kind of going to be the reverse thing. Right now in China, you can't sell these Western brands typically. You have to go through a Chinese brand and rebadge a Chinese car to be a Mazda. There's like the 6E. There's all these, GM. There's a lot of things that have Chinese underpinnings that have this brand associated. Audi, Volkswagen, all these companies do it. They all do it in China, and so I think they can do the same exact playbook in America. Just reverse it and say, okay, well now this can actually be a symbiotic relationship. Like, we have the rules in China, and now you have the same rules here in America. So we'll take your Western brands and we'll use those badges, but put our stuff underneath of that. And just do the same thing here. And then at the end of the day, it means that, yes, the Western brands get stuff that is at least keeping them in the game. But at the end of the day, China is going to win the car industry and dominate and basically have a monopoly because they're so far ahead. Again, you'll have the fringe, gas stuff that hangs on till the very end that they can't duplicate Lamborghini or Ferrari and things like that. But like, for the mainstream stuff, they will take over if companies don't get their act together. And I think this is why Ford, Jim Farley talks about it all the time. Every time he gets a chance, he's in interviews, he's talking about, we're going to be the Chinese and we have to, they're doing this radical stuff with the gigacasting like Tesla. And they're, doing all these drastic measures with this, new Model T program or whatever it is, to really, Jim Farley, I think is as crazy as he is, he's one of the few who gets the stakes here. That like he said even a couple of years ago, like, this is an extinction level event. If we do not get our act together, China will just completely wipe out the auto industry in America, one way or another, And so, regardless of how many tariffs you want to throw on them, no matter how much you want to, make it, a struggle to get in, like if the tech is superior, like that superior tech is going to win out. It always does. So I think that's the future I see for Honda, and I think it's too late to fix it now that they've put the nail in the coffin. Their last hope of trying to do it themselves, they're done with that. There's none of that. Once they run out of road for the gas stuff and the hybrid stuff, which is going to be a long time. We're not talking 10 years. They still got a ways, but by 2040, Honda won't be recognizable, I don't think. And it's a shame. But anyway, so we're almost here at the end. So I'll catch up here with the last few questions. And again, apologies for all the tangents here tonight, but hopefully it's been mildly entertaining for some of you. So Nico says, as the saying goes, why buy a Honda when you can get a faster Ford? I don't disagree. Also, Nico says super speeders are still active on YouTube. That's true. Yeah. Although they don't do the crazy stuff they used to, with like doing these like crazy cannonball runs and stuff, at least not as much from what I've seen. But let me see. Nico says Australia driving on the right. That makes no sense. Get your dingo and back to the left lane. I love Australia, or at least what it seems like. I've never actually been. That's one of my bucket list places I want to go someday. But driving on the right's fun though, and I did that in the UK back in 2018. Loved it. It's so fun. The right-hand drive stuff and all that. But let me see here. So I guess that was on the left in the UK, so never mind. But yeah, let me see. Where are we here? Confirmation says the super speeders Rob running from the cops in a Ford GT is a classic. Yeah, there are so many of those classic moments. Let me see. Gauges says, good evening and happy Easter. Longtime channel fan and PA native myself. Been searching high and low for another exciting vehicle to put next to my E39 M5 for the tune of 13 grand. That's a tough budget. I think if you want something similar, if you like that kind of a vehicle, like a sporty saloon kind of thing, the thing that jumps to my mind would be a Pontiac G8, possibly would be in that kind of a budget. Not a manual, but if you're okay with an automatic, could be a fun choice. I don't think Chevy SSs are that low yet, especially not the manuals. I'm also thinking like you can go, Pontiac GTO is another kind of like quirky one that's very exciting and fun, probably around that price point now. There's a lot of other options. Like, I in the past few years have done like a Saturn Sky Redline, the Pontiac Solstice, GXP you can get for that kind of a price tag, really fun. Miata is always a fun answer, if you're again open to that kind of a sports car. There's a lot of stuff, so I need more context, unfortunately. Sorry, I don't have a better answer, but yeah, there's a lot of options still. It just comes down to what you're looking for exactly. And I do one-on-one car consulting on my website at mattmaranmotoring.com. So if you'd like to, book a little call, I'm more than happy to kind of drill down with more context of exactly what might be a good fit for you or something to consider. But there's a few there off the top of my head, and maybe that helps you a little bit, hopefully. Let me see. Nico says Pirates will forever be known, forever making the finals and losing like my Blue Jays. I was really pulling for the Blue Jays last year. I hope you guys get to it at some point here. That would have been so nice to see the Blue Jays win, but it is what it is. And B. Mitchell says, Pirates and Jays fans, how do you think I feel about having the Twins, Vikings, Timberwolves, North Stars, then wild round here? No wonder I root for Formula One teams. You see, I don't know enough about sports to know your heartbreak, unfortunately, B. Mitchell. So, but sounds like it's not very fun. So fair enough. I'm glad you're enjoying the F1 at least. Nico says, I wanted to be a truck driver, but my ultra-conservative parents forced me to go to college. I should have also invested in Apple, but life is full of disappointments. That's the truth. Yeah, I think we all wish we would have invested more in Apple, and many others. Man, even like I look back and I'm like, even, Tesla or just even Bitcoin. Obviously, crypto is kind of a little bit more all over the place these days. But like, man, if you would have gotten in, like I was in college whenever like that first started kind of getting into the consciousness of the world. And like, man, if I would have, put every penny, like for example, like if I had, and it's always these stupid what ifs, but like if I had not bought the BRZ, I would have kept my Legacy GT that I had paid off, and I put that money from the monthly payments I paid for the BRZ, if I would have put that into Bitcoin, I probably could have retired by now. I wouldn't have had the fun career I would have had because the BRZs would really jump started this channel. But like if I would have put those BRZ dollars into Bitcoin, I'd be sitting pretty if anyone's a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan. Be sitting real nice right now. So, but hindsight, what can you do? If we ever have time machines, there will be signs because I will be flushed with cash from all the early crypto investments there. But anyway, let me see. So Mr. 705 says he worked at Honda for 7 years, started building CRVs and got into new model training, then into the office and inventory control. I think you'd really like working for a manufacturer. Yeah, I think there's pros and cons. On the PR side, it would have to be a brand that I really could be a cheerleader for. Kind of like Toyota, or a brand where it's like most of their stuff I really like, because you have to sell it and you have to really pitch it and do be biased, honestly, and that's something because I've been doing this for so long, it grinds my gears too much if I'm ever not genuine or something. Like I always have to just like be blunt and honest, for better or for worse. And, if it was a PR job where I don't want to pick on any particular car company, but like, if there is just since we've been already dogging Honda tonight, if I had to write a PR release for like why they ditched their EVs, like I don't think I could do that. Like I'd be like, I can't write this. Like this is just, I can't do this. Like, so there'd be some of that. So I definitely would have to make sure it's a car company that not only do I like what they're doing right now, but that I like their projected future and what their goals are and what their plans are. If I can get on board with all that, then I could do that job for sure. But unless I'm on another side of the manufacturer where I am trying to, fix things or, change things, if I was in that kind of a fortunate position, then I could, work for probably just about any company because I have opinions on how they can all be fixed. But like, yeah, the PR stuff can be really hard if you're not, with a good company, I think. And Vishal says, did you see Dodge CEOs asked, do you need a radio in a back to basics quest for entry level cars? I did see that interview. He didn't bring anything up about that when I was chatting with him. Yeah, I mean, the only thing as far as entry level vehicles, I just told him which again, I'm sure he heard 10 times over that week, if not more. I was just like, you guys got to do something cheaper for the Charger, whether it's the Hurricane 4 or you throw the Pentastar in, I don't even care, and the rear-wheel drive thing, and all that, and just not do all-wheel drive. And I think they already know that. They understand. I'm sure they already have plans. I don't know. He obviously didn't say anything. But I can't believe that it's only going to be all-wheel drive forever and that it's only going to be, the Hurricane motor forever. They're going to definitely do some kind of cheaper thing. Cause they understand, they know the numbers, it's their numbers. They know, the amount of people and who actually bought Challengers and Chargers and what the lion's share of those buyers were paying. And it's, even with inflation adjustments, it's not what RT starts at, it's less. So, and they don't have to discount like crazy. So, you got to bring the price point down for the sticker. And so that means, smaller engine, which no one's going to mind. Hurricane 4 is a strong engine. Pentastar would be completely fine for the people that just want the cool look. And Pentastar is still a good motor, so, I think there's some of that, but yeah, nothing about asking about the need for a radio. But I do know, he's very, Matt Mackler, the CEO of Dodge, he's, even with our conversation, he's very passionate about like, he wishes there was less regulation because like, if he could truly not have to worry about some of this stuff, like, a radio to have a backup camera display, since that's federally mandated. Like if he had more freedom and more flexibility, like he could do a lot more cool stuff. You know, I think there's two sides of that coin. I don't have to go, into all that, but like, that's the reality is, they have their hands slightly tied with the regulations. And I mean, some of it's for good reason, I think, but like, it's the reality of building cars in modern times. You can't just have something without a radio unless you're Slate or you've come up with some other way, put the backup camera in the rearview mirror or whatever. But yeah, I think I'm all for it. Like, that's why I love the idea of Slate. And it sounds like he does too, because it's, someone's going to try that. And we'll see how it does for them. I'm really rooting for Slate. We'll see what happens here this year, because I think it's going to, I think we're getting pricing in June, they said, I think is what they publicly have said. So I'm hoping that it's actually competitive and that it's well done, because I'm pulling for that, because I think then that could kind of lead the charge for other companies to ditch stuff they previously thought was mandatory and really try and get these back to basics cars in dealers. That'd be great. And Mr. 705 says he went to school for electrical engineering. I was in way over my head in that program. I only made it through because of two good friends. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you made it through. Yeah, no, I will be the first to admit the weed out classes in Virginia Tech's mechanical engineering program weeded me out. They did their job. I didn't have what it takes, and it is what it is. But I wish that's another one of those hindsight things. If I would have gone to, because a lot of like the GM engineers, there's a school called Kettering University in Michigan that very much is like tied into GM, and it's like, you go to that school, and I actually got accepted there. I was considering going there. I applied and all that. But Virginia Tech was just really a lot more exciting to me. But in hindsight, maybe if I would have went there, I would have ended up being a GM engineer and could have been doing some cool stuff right now. Who knows? But let me see. Sorry, it was rough. Hopefully, maybe you're able to still make a career out of it for a while there, Mr. 705. And kudos for getting through it, though. And I'm not paying 42 grand for a prelude. Thanks for stopping by. Says, good evening, all. Got married yesterday, and the day has been spent recovering and forgotten Sunday. Oh, man, go off and enjoy the newlywed bliss. And congrats. That's awesome. Hope it's a lifetime of happiness for you both. And congrats on making that leap and for finding someone. That's something I think more and more people are struggling to find these days too. So congrats on finding that. And I hope it's exceeds your wildest expectations. So thanks so much for stopping by. But please, we're wrapping up here anyway. Go off and enjoy that. Don't worry about us here. But Michelle says, speaking of niche, another one along lines of Accord Cross Tour you can review is a BMW 6 Series GT. Neighbor across the street has one. Pretty unique package. Those are pretty unique. I have driven those. They were about as exciting as driving a mattress. I mean, it was just like very bland, very just cushy like a mattress. I mean, it was comfortable. So if you're doing a lot of miles, maybe it's nice, but just probably the softest, arguably the crappiest handling BMW I think I've ever driven. I mean, I didn't do a ton of driving in it. It was just when I was in my, detailing days, but like didn't love it. But yeah, that would be one that I'm sure would get about 5 views, but it could be fun. And maybe there'd be like a curiosity factor. I mean, maybe they would actually get good views, because I clearly am not very good at predicting what gets good views anymore. So I don't know, maybe it would be worth trying out. Who knows? Nico says, I went to school for finance, historical cost principle and lease accounting still make no sense. I get you. Yeah. Well, hopefully you can, hopefully the job market works out for you, Nico. I know you were trying to find something. Hopefully you find something here soon if you haven't already. Let me see. Sorry, confirmation. I missed your other super chat. I apologize. How did I not see that? Because I saw the other two. I just didn't see the third one. I apologize. He says, who is the most cowardly OEM? Honda, Subaru, who? Honestly, I think, I lean towards Subaru, but then I'm like, they still have BRZ and WRX, which is more than a lot of companies. So, but I think, Subaru and Honda are up there as far as I wouldn't say fall from greatness, but like watering down the brands a little bit and just being kind of disappointing in recent years. a little bit. I feel like there's a few others too, but just for the sake of being concise here, I'll just say those are probably some of the top ones. I feel like there's one other one on the tip of my tongue though that really grinds my gears, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's not coming to me. If it comes to me later, I'll let you know. But we'll wrap up here in a few. So let me see. Um, Honda mentioned they're doing it. I'm not sure. Sorry, I know we're behind, so I'm not sure what we're talking about here. But he says Honda's at least still doing the 0 Series Alpha. They need to build off that if they want to have any chance of living through the 2030s in an enjoyable manner. I'm not sure what the 0 Series Alpha is because there was the SUV and then there was the saloon. I'm not familiar with the whatever the Alpha thing is. Because even like they just announced they canceled the Afeela too, which that one actually deserved to be canceled. But like the others, I don't know about the Alpha. I'll have to look into that. But see, Rishi says as far as confirmations question, Jaguar. I think Jaguar. I mean, again, I have an unpopular opinion with that, but I think Jaguar is on the right path. I think they're doing the right thing because they tried to, do the competing with the Europeans thing and do better cars, and they made better cars in many cases, I think, in my opinion, and it didn't work. They had the attitude, they had all the, marketing, they invested in, getting them out there, and it didn't pay off. I can't blame Jaguar for changing, and doing something different and doing something radically different because I don't think anything else was going to save them. And Nico says GM and Dodge. And I guess it's interesting. You guys have some interesting takes there because, I don't know. I think there's some I mean, that's the thing. It's so hard to say a whole brand in general because I think there's every brand has things where I'm like, oh, come on. Like, what are you doing with this one product or maybe these couple of products? But usually they're not bad all the way through. Even Mitsubishi, like, I don't even think that's cowardice. It's just that they don't have money, it seems, or investment from Japan to like bring more stuff here. But like even Mitsubishi, like the Outlander is actually good. And like in the upper half of that segment, I'd say, although their pricing is also whack for that from a sticker standpoint. I mean, I think they have a bunch of discounts regardless. Even like it's hard for me to even say that definitively for Mitsubishi. All the other stuff in Mitsubishi is crap, it seems. But like Outlander is actually good. And the plug-in hybrid's actually like one of my favorite plug-in hybrids still. So it's hard for me to answer that question, honestly. But she says, man, I would make such a good CEO for Honda. I know exactly what to do. I hope I hire somebody that knows what to do because it seems like just about anyone is an improvement, but anyone who's passionate about the brand, like it seems you are, that's what they need is that passion and people who believe in the brand. And it also says, I think the 4 companies will fight the Chinese are Mercedes, Toyota, BMW, and Volkswagen Group. Maybe Ford and GM join in. Everyone else might be toast. Yeah, I think Ford and GM have a good shot at it too, along with the ones you mentioned there. But yeah, BMW's doing great. Toyota's doing great. Mercedes is doing pretty well. A few missteps, but I think they're hopefully getting back to the right track. Although these new designs Mercedes has done, like, woof, not into them. Still don't know about you guys, but not good. The Volkswagen Group, I think, is on the right path too, even though they're kind of going through it right now. But Nico says, I'm a Ford fanatic, but Farley has got to go. If you've driven a BYD, they're not as good as people think. Price is very good, though. I'm not sure which ones you've driven. They have, a wide variety of models. Some of the stuff seems like it's world class. Others are econo boxes, but I've never driven a BYD. Never had an opportunity, really. I've had a chance to like do, if you saw some of those other YouTubers were doing like, their walk around kind of, videos with some of the Chinese stuff a couple years back. I had the opportunity to do that. Just at that point, there wasn't enough interest, in my opinion, and they weren't cars we could buy here. So I was just like, why do stuff, if it's, because I like giving actual consumer advice, not just showing off cool stuff. So that's why I didn't take that opportunity. But I'd like to try some of the Chinese stuff eventually, for sure. I'm sure eventually I'll get there as long as I keep doing this job, I guess. But let me see. Regina says Honda's is developing solid state, so they desperately need to fast track that technology. Interesting. Okay, well, that's good to hear. I didn't know that, so I appreciate the info, and I hope that they do it well. We'll see if they have any money left to invest in that after throwing away 15 billion. And Nico says, yeah, Ufa Honda hate. Sorry about that. But he also says, by the way, have you seen the police chases in Yours Truly America? OMG, I watch like a few per day, mostly Scat Packs and Hellcats. I haven't seen too many of those recently, but yeah, I'm sure lots of Florida men doing Florida things in particular, but I'm sure there's some others in the country too. But yeah, yeah, it's one of those things that is very much part of the culture. Car chases sometimes. And he also says you can get a Whipple supercharger for 13 grand. That would be fun. Yeah, for the other question there earlier. And also says, I think B. Mitchell was saying Minnesota has not won any titles in sports. Yeah, well, I figured it was, just not very fun. So, yeah, I thought, were the Vikings in the Super Bowl? I guess maybe they just lose all the time too, just like some of the other teams here. And Gage also says, never considered the G8. Great idea. Would love a quirky American V8 to put a big cam on. Great hip pocket answer. I'm glad it worked out there. And also check your website out. You're the man. I appreciate that. And thanks so much for all the support all these years as well. Abby Mitchell says, at least I invested in GM during COVID when it was $20 a share. Nice. Well, ironically, that may now help pay for a new Ford F-150 Lobo. Nice. That's kind of funny. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, COVID was a great time to invest. That's for sure. So kudos to you for having the cool head there to dive in when everyone else was diving out. And best of luck there with that Lobo hunt too. And Nico says, my sources from the beyond tell me you are on the Xfinity network. That's right. I hack for a hobby. You would actually be incorrect. So may need to check that. But yeah, no, I am not. But let me see. All right, more team talk there. And also, where are we here? Sorry, I just reloaded the comments here. So, okay, almost at the end here, and we'll head on out. So also, Nico says, by the way, why is the V8 Mustangs downgraded to less power in Europe? Don't they have Lambos and Ferraris with 1,000 horsepower? Yes. So in Europe, there's particulate filters that are required. So that is what clogs up the exhausts and reduces the power. And I do also know that for the UK Mustang in particular with the V8, in the conversion to right-hand drive, there's the way things are routed has to be tweaked. And I think they have to do a more convoluted exhaust manifold, if I remember correctly. And I think I actually have to like loop something over the steering rack or something to retain the rest of the mounting points and stuff. And it was, just a kind of a cluster under the skin there to try and get that all to work with right-hand drive. So I think that's why it makes less power in the UK in particular, but Europe also has those particular filters that also hurt power. So I believe that's why. And they just didn't bother to try and up the power to compensate. And with Europe, they engineer for that stuff from the get-go. So you don't have any of those concessions that need to be made, and they have particulate filters and still do 1,000 horsepower. So they just, make sure they have sufficient power to, overcome that stuff. Let me see. And see Nico's got the Hokie shout out here. And Rashida says, I'm going to Virginia Tech in the fall. I got accepted this year. Oh, that's awesome. Well, congrats and welcome to the Hokie family. That's very exciting. I hope you love it. I loved it. West End has some of the best food. At least, it's been 10 years since I've been back. Or no, actually, it's been 11. I'm hoping to get back. I really want to take my daughter and show her around and stuff. And I just miss being there. But that's awesome. Congrats. I hope you have a great time. They're a great school. It says for computer science, great school for that too. Hopefully you'll have a great time there. But beautiful campus, so walkable. You'll be in great shape with all the walking you have to do because it's a big campus. But the community is so great. People are so nice. Teachers were great. Just so many great things about that school. So if you need any recommendations or any other stuff, definitely feel free to send me a message or something. More than happy. I was in I apologize for anyone who doesn't care, but was in Pritchard Hall the first year. Went to Vauder the second year because I was on campus all 4 years, and then third and fourth years I was in what was called New Hall West, which was brand new back when I was there in 2008 to 2012, and was yeah, like you had your own bathroom, which was the big upgrade over the communal ones and stuff. But yeah, and also that New Hall West was right next to the best dining hall, which in my opinion is called West End. So, still some of the best food. I mean, man, I miss it. I miss the food so much. Virginia Tech, for anyone who doesn't know, is like ranked consistently, typically in the top 5. Sometimes it's in the top 1 or 2 for best college food in the country. It's like, man, you eat good at Virginia Tech, that's for sure. So get a healthy amount of dining dollars or food plans or however they do that now, and enjoy, because it's so many good things. I could go on all night, but I won't. But you'll have a great time, I think, and best of luck with that. And Nico says, I'd rather go to USC, but them Virginia beaches ain't bad when it's warm. Yeah, you just gotta watch out for the jellyfish. And let me see. He didn't get into USC. Well, now you can. Yeah, Virginia Tech's great. I think you'll love it there. All right. So yeah, he says he may try to transfer at some point. So yeah, see what works for you. And maybe Virginia Tech won't be the best, but I think you'll like it. It might grow on you. You have to see. I'm curious to hear your thoughts after a while here. B. Mitchell says, as exciting as driving a mattress, good one. Maybe I should get you writing for Sports Car Market. Well, again, I'm open to offers. Once again, I do the writing for Car Buzz still. So if you ever are on Car Buzz, every once in a while, you might see one of my articles pop up on there. Every once in a while, I'll get in a few good zingers in my articles. And it's fun to actually be able to like kind of, script things a little bit more in an article and kind of put a little more thought into my remarks before I just, blab like I do on videos. So it's fun to write for sure. And let me see. Right here, more school talk there. Great to see you guys chatting about that. And looks like Nintendo says Mitsubishi killed off the Mirage at the peak of an oil crisis and recession wombo combo. Yeah, you're right. And I'm sure they kind of wish they got the Mirage back. The good news is, I think Mitsubishi's version of the Nissan Leaf that they're getting, I think we're getting that here in the States, and I think that's coming this year, if I remember reading that right. So I think they'll have something. Whether that comes fast enough, we'll have to see again how long this oil crisis drags on for. It's not going to resolve itself quickly, so there will be some benefit regardless, but obviously the sooner the better. So I hope that comes quickly, but I haven't heard anything new about that Mitsubishi version of the Leaf. But yeah, the sooner the better, I think. Even though surprisingly, I just saw the Leaf is not selling well right now, which I'm so bummed about because it's actually really well done. It's priced well, and like all these other EVs are on fire right now with interest and sales this past month. And I thought the Leaf would be a beneficiary of that, but it doesn't seem like it is just yet. So we'll see what happens. Maybe that'll come eventually here. I don't know. But Nico says it was the BYD Dolphin. Oh yeah, the Dolphin's like one of the smallest little ones. So I'm sure Dolphin's not great, but like some of the other stuff seems like it's like pretty wild. And Vishal says Mercedes designs these days aren't it. My friend's dad has a 22 GLE and loves it. He hates how the new ones look. Safe to say he's going to stick with that one for a good while. Well, that's good. And yeah, before the new ones, the old ones look pretty nice. Nico says we sure root for crappy sports franchises. That's for sure. And now you're just guessing about Verizon Fios. There's what else is out there now? There's like the AT&T's now doing their stuff. There's a bunch of stuff. We don't have too many choices around here though, because there's like others. Like we don't get like Cox, and we don't get what's the other one? It's what's the other like internet provider that like, used to be in Virginia and stuff? I don't remember. But anyway. Not important. Confirmation says your explanation about the manifold routing for right-hand drive is why the Mustang GT lost power when they first brought it over to the UK. Yeah. On a really somber note, as a former VT student, were you there when the particularly sad event occurred there almost 20 years ago now? No, yeah, that was in 2007. I was there '08 to 2012. So I came the year after though. I was the first class to come in after that. Yeah, for the first fall session. What after that? Or actually, no, I was the year after because because I was fall of 2008 when I came in. So they had already celebrated the first anniversary of that. But yeah, it was my thinking back then was it's now the safest school in the country because they've been through it. They know where they failed with their responses and what they could improve, and they were on high alert. And I mean, and the police force was fantastic. I mean, and there was other instances that happened because when you have a giant school of 30 some thousand people, I don't want to get, gory, but there was a couple of things that actually happened. There was a couple other little, shootings. There was actually right outside my dorm there. I could see from my window someone covered up from another shooting, and like a sheet or whatever, and other things. So I mean, there was still things that happened for sure, and there's a few scary moments. But that's again, any giant school you're going to hear about, murder on campus and things like that. So there's, not to dismiss it, but like, there's some of those things that just happen when you have a large population of people. It's bound to happen eventually. But they were really good with all those, instances when I was there. I've always felt very safe there for sure. And let me see. So Nico says, good tasty food in Virginia. I thought it would be New York or LA. Oh, there's so much good food in Virginia, especially if you like the unhealthy kind. And Nintendo Atari Killer says communal bathrooms just like ancient Rome. Yeah, yeah, and it was about that sophisticated for the plumbing too in some of those dorms. But yeah, you walk in with your little shower caddy and your flip flops because you don't want to get like weird foot stuff from fungi or whatever from the shower. So yeah, it's not glamorous, but that's the way it was. Yeah, B Mitchell says it's more like in the Air Force. Yeah, same deal. An upgrade was being in a dorm with a room that shared a bathroom with only one other room, and that was in Manoa Air Force Base. Nice. And he says, that's right, I'm a bona fide ISP guesser. Nice. All right, well, I think we have reached the end here. So thanks so much for a fun chat here, 2.5 hours again tonight. Apologies for anyone who was not expecting this to go this long, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, those of you who stuck around. And yeah, stay tuned for another live here on Wednesday, and stay tuned for some more good stuff here this week. As always appreciate your support here, especially those of you who are members. Really, again, appreciate that. Appreciate all the super chats here tonight and all that too. Yeah, thank you guys so much. And yeah, have a good week here. I'll see you for the next one. Take care.